IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown podcast. Happy Wednesday. And somehow we are already almost halfway through the month of May, which means we are one step closer to getting to Notre Dame taking on Miami down in South Florida on August 31st. But before we get there, there's always a lot of content.
Season, Trevor.
Sorry, me too, man. Me too. It's that Mountain Dew, baby.
It's got me a little jazzed.
We're ready to go today, man. And it's Wednesday, and you guys know what that means for us here at Irish Breakdown. Today, we have our Buy, Sell, Hold segment, which is something that we do for our premium message board members. Our guy Salty gets the thread started on the premium message boards in the Champions Lounge. Basically, what you guys do is you pose scenarios, questions, and Brian and I have to sit down, discuss it. And then at the end of each card, we're going to discuss whether we buy the premise, we sell it, or we put a hold on it. Reminder, this is for the premium message board members. It's not a mailbag. So if you just put in a buy, sell, hold in the chat, we won't be able to get to it today. But if you forgot to get yours in, or you really, really want your question answered, you can always put in a super chat. We'll make sure that we get to those. But Brian, it's not one of the only things that we are going to be talking about today, man. It's a busy Wednesday for us.
Yeah, it is. Look, obviously today, Georgia running back Jonas Walton is going to be making his decision at 3 o'clock. He's going to be picking between Notre Dame, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, and Stanford. Once he makes his decision and he goes live with it, we'll kind of break down whatever decision he makes and what that might mean for Notre Dame. Obviously, Notre Dame has a running back commitment already, but they are looking for 2 in this class. So one way or the other, this is going to impact Notre Dame. Either he picks Notre Dame and we get to talk about it and break it down, or he pick someone else, and we talk about what that means for Notre Dame as they look to get a second running back in this class. So that is where we will turn to once that announcement is made. It'll be a little after 3 o'clock, so we're just going to go rock and roll through these buy, sell, holds until we get to that point in time, and then we'll discuss that decision once we get there. So I'm ready to go, man. Ready to roll. If you got super chats, obviously, go ahead and throw those in, and Trev and I will get to them, but my dude, I am ready to go. Our guy Salty usually gets that first one. Sometimes he doesn't put one in the form of a question, and it's hard for us to use it like we did. Or last week we kind of wanted to start with something different. No buy sell hold rants today that like we had last week. So I'm in a much better mood this week. So we can go ahead and get this thing rolling.
Salty getting us started off with the top 2 defensive players transferring, one to Ohio State, one to Penn State. The well-respected athletic director leaving, and the circus surrounding his girlfriend, North Carolina is likely to have a very disappointing outcome with Bill Belichick as the head football coach.
Well, I buy that. I mean, I'm so – you know what, Salty, I want to say thanks to you, man, because the fact that you led with football stuff first, I mean, legitimate football stuff. Obviously, Bo Atkinson jumped in the transfer portal this spring, and they had a linebacker jump in the portal that's going to Penn State. I believe the linebacker jumped to Penn State. They landed their fair share of players as well, but it has been a wild offseason for North Carolina. Bubba Cunningham leaving, I don't think has anything to do with the football program directly. That might have to do with, how long Bill Belichick stays there or whatever the case may be. But I don't think Bubba Cunningham had a huge role in hiring Bill Belichick to begin with, which is part of the reason I think that he's leaving. The whole thing's been one soap opera. So, no, I'm going to buy that it's going to be a disappointing year for North Carolina. And, everybody gave Deion Sanders such a hard time when he took over at Colorado because he was taking his son and Travis Hunter. And it's like everything that people talked about with Deion at least was football related, not this off the field soap opera stuff that I'm just so over hearing about and talking about. So I appreciate that. Salty, I think this is going to be a very long year for them. Very long year for them. I just don't think they have a roster, even if it wasn't for all those things. I just don't think they have a roster that's going to be overly effective, to be honest with you. And I think it's a somewhat improved year in the ACC overall also. So I buy that.
Yeah, I'm buying this as well. I can't really remember the last time I remember a big name head coach like this being hired to a Power 4 program, and there's already mutterings that, there's a chance he might not make it to week 1. I don't know how valid those are.
I think some of that stuff is just people looking for drama, people looking for clicks, people just looking for – it may end up happening, but sometimes you say something and it becomes fact, and partly because of your bullcrap that you're doing, it's so tiresome. Like when did the media look like what is the reason that the sports media has become so like the paparazzi and like entertainment media where everything is about the drama and the soap opera aspects of it? It's like, just drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. No rant. I said no rant on the first one, so I'm done. I'm done. Sorry, Trev. Go ahead.
No, you're all right, man. I think it speaks to not a lot to report right now. It's at that time in the off season, but from a football perspective, I'm not the biggest fan of how North Carolina's football team is actually put together. So regardless of who the head coach was, whether it's Bill Belichick and all this other off the field drama that's going on with their program, I just don't know how good they would be anyways. But yes, I do buy it will be a very, very disappointing outcome.
Oh, yeah.
Domer Grizz, buy, sell, hold. Ryan Day bought himself 10 more years at Ohio State by winning the national championship last year, so we shouldn't hear any more concerns from the Freeman's going to leave us for Ohio State crowd.
Oh, we're going to still hear that. It's just going to be first time Ryan Day. Like let's say Ohio State loses the opener to Texas, they're right back at it.
Mm-hmm.
Right back at it. And if it's not for Ohio State, they'll just insert ... name a team. You know, if a Midwestern team fires their coach, the Bengals fire Zach Taylor, the Browns fire Kevin Stefanski, it's going to be, whoa, wait a minute. What if they go after Marcus Freeman? That's just going to be around because there's just a doom and gloom aspect to the fan base that just wants to always focus on what may happen that would suck as opposed to just enjoying the moment. Like here's what I hope I live long enough to see the day that Marcus Freeman's not the head football coach of Notre Dame, because the odds of him, being the next Joe Paterno are not great, being in a place for 40 years. So I hope I live long enough to see the end of his tenure at Notre Dame, which I hopefully someday is by choice. He, moves on to bigger and better things after winning multiple championships, but he's going to leave someday. So I'm not going to stress about that. I'm going to enjoy what he's doing in the meantime, and Archer in the chat will tell you there's a contingent of Ohio State fans that are going to be calling for Ryan Day's head every time he loses a game. And that's just how, and that's going to be true for Notre Dame. If Marcus Freeman loses a couple games for some reason, it's going to be the same stuff. This is, last year's a fluke. There's just that part of the fan base. Some people just like being miserable. And that's true for every fan base. Every fan base has those. So
couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Irish, English. Kansas State wins the Big 12.
I buy that as a possibility. I mean, look, Kansas State has a legit explosive offensive talent. I mean, Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards might be the most dynamic 1-2 punch in the backfield in college football this year. And there's no reason to think they can't do for that team sort of in a Big 12 version of what Notre Dame got last year from Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love from a national standpoint. But they also have a receiver that was a big play guy last year, J.C. Brown, who's a big play guy. So look, and I'm a big fan of their coach. I think he's done a great job. Well, he's done a good job there. It hasn't done a great job there. But I think their program is kind of ascending. So I like that team. They have a shot. But Trev, the reality is guys, you could insert about 8 teams into this and we'd buy it as a possibility. The Big 12 is going to be a tough conference to read for years. It is, just for a bunch of different reasons. So I buy that Kansas State is a team that is on my list of potential Big 12 contenders. I'm not ready to say definitively they're going to win the Big 12. But if I had to pick a team today, I'd sell it, because right now I believe Arizona State was both of our highest ranked teams in the Big 12. I think we both had BYU next, I believe. And then obviously it's, K-State and Iowa State were the next couple on yours. K-State was the next one on mine. I think Kansas could be improved this year. I think Oklahoma State's going to be improved this year. Texas Tech just went completely rebuilt their roster through the portal. Utah is going to be better this year. Colorado is still going to have talent. I mean, this is going to be a fun year in the Big 12, Trev. It really is. And K-State's a team that's got a shot to win it. So I'll buy that they have a shot to win it. But if I had to make a prediction today, if we were doing our Big 12 predictions today, I'd sell this and I'd say, I'm going with Arizona State.
I'm with you. JP is for Notre Dame. Buy, sell, hold. The Irish Breakdown staff was very surprised and did not see coming Navy being a night game on November 8th, 2025.
Well, I buy that was how I felt until you told me a couple days before, JP, that it was going to be a night game. So when it finally got announced, I wasn't at all surprised, but that was because of what you told me. But when I got that email from JP, I was shocked. I was very surprised. I mean, they'd never had 3 home night games before, ever. So I definitely didn't see that coming. And if it was going to be a third one, it wasn't Navy that I would have predicted. I would have predicted maybe like Boise State or – maybe one of the 2 November games, maybe the senior day for them. I don't know. Maybe they wanted the Peacock game at night. I don't know. I would have had to get through a few schools before I would have guessed Navy as being the third night game. But I wouldn't have predicted there to even be a third night game because they've never done it. Not at home anyway.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised as well. So I buy this. I even tried looking up, like, is there like a significance? Is this like the anniversary of some big game? Is it like the 100-year anniversary? Nope. So I think it was just a random, maybe a random occurrence potentially. I don't know, but who knows? Buy so hold from Domer Grizz. Oh, sorry, buy so hold from BJam and 41. You would rather have Rocket Ismail and Chris Zorich on the 2025 team over Brady Quinn and Justin Tuck?
Oh man. Oh man, that's tough. I'll buy that. He's getting me here with my two great Notre Dame loves, Trev, with Rocket and Brady Quinn. But here's why, practically speaking, I would buy this, because you put Rocket Ismail in a receiving core with Jaden Greathouse and Malachi Fields and Eli Raridan with Jeremiah Love out of the backfield. That's pretty flippant dynamic for a quarterback that I think is very talented. And young, but very talented. But life would be made a whole lot easier for him. I mean, it's kind of like what we talked about. It'd be a better receiving core than even what Trevor Lawrence had in 2018. With all due respect to Justin Ross and T. Higgins, they're not Rocket Ismail. And then you throw Jaden Greathouse and Malachi Fields and all that. That'd be dynamic. Brady Quinn and Justin Tuck would be a phenomenal group too. But look, what did we say yesterday, Trev, is right now the biggest position group that we have a concern about when it comes to the Notre Dame defense? It's D tackle. You give me Chris Zorich, who's an All-American player. Justin Tuck was phenomenal as well, but we kind of feel like there's already a lot of talent there. So, it's like if you give me Brady Quinn and Justin Tuck, that's a win. It's a win-win. But if I had to take the two, I would rather take the Rocket Ismail Chris Zorich team. Plus, you're going to also have the most dynamic return man in all of college football as well next year, on top of an All-American nose tackle.
Yeah, this one's tough for me. I'm probably going to sell this one, BJam, and I think I'd take Brady Quinn and Justin Tuck. I'm really excited for one of Kenny Minchie or CJ Carr, but I mean, I know what Brady Quinn is. I know what he was, especially back at Notre Dame. And edge rusher is, like we talked about yesterday, kind of the biggest question mark that we have on this. It's the position group with the most amount of ifs.
Most unknown, sure, yeah.
So I'd probably go Quinn and Justin Tuck.
This goes back, Trev, to where I appreciate your consistency. And you have a stance on this that's very similar to the one that I have. Is like when people ask me, who'd you rather have, Tim Brown or – well, I don't really remember Tim Brown at Notre Dame. So I can't really speak on that. Who's the best defensive end in Notre Dame? Well, I'm like, loose emoji would tell you it's Ross Browner, but I never saw Ross Browner play, so I can't answer that.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the consistency of, you never saw Rocket Ismail and Chris Zorich play in college. So I totally get that. So I appreciate the consistency of how you answer that question. But if you were my age, I'm quite confident. Knowing how I know you, I'm quite confident you would have picked the same one that I did. But I definitely anticipated the one that you chose because you're consistent, and that's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. From all the highlight films that I've seen of Rocket, I mean, it's fantastic.
But it's different. It's different than having seen highlights of a guy and then actually having lived through it. Like, you can watch the Reggie Bush highlights, but if you didn't actually experience it, you don't quite understand just how much how dynamic he was. It's you got to have watched the games, the full games, and so I get that.
Another buy-sell hold from BJam and 41. At least one portal transfer player is named a captain on the 2025 team.
I'm going to actually sell that, Trevor, because Look, they landed some guys that were captains before. Malachi Fields was a captain at Virginia last year. But one of the reasons that I think that we saw Sam Hartman and then Riley Leonard become captains is they were here the entire offseason. And I don't know that any of the other newcomers are guys that would be captain type of players. Would it shock me if Devontae Smith was named a captain or Jalen Strom was named a captain? Not really. Jalen more so just because he didn't practice this spring, but it was at least with the team. So would that shock me? No, that wouldn't shock me. I think Devontae Smith probably has the best chance, but I don't know that any of those guys are going to be in that position. And I think the biggest reason why we saw a portal player named the captain the last 2 years is because they were quarterbacks and they were here through the spring. It's a little bit different. So I'm going to sell that. And it's not that there aren't captain caliber players. As I said, Malachi Fields has been a captain in college football. He was a captain the last time he stepped on field at Notre Dame Stadium. He was a captain for that Virginia team. It's just, and if he were here in January, then maybe he's a captain. But I don't even know that he's going to be the leader of the wide receiver room, period, because of the presence of Jaden Greathouse. So I'm gonna sell that.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. It is exciting that Jaden Greathouse might actually be a captain this upcoming season. I can't tell you the last time I remember a wide receiver being a captain.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know Michael Mayer he was a tight end, but I don't remember the last time a wide receiver was a captain at Notre Dame.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'd have to. I don't think Floyd was in 2011. Will Fuller wasn't. Chase Claypool wasn't. Was Chris Fink a captain?
He might have been.
He'd be the only guy that I could even think of that might have been a captain. And I don't know that he was, but that would be, yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. Very good question. I'm going to go look up and see if I can find. Yeah, Chris Fink was one of 7 captains that Notre Dame had that year. So that's also the fact that they had 7 captains. But yeah, Chris Fink was a captain in 2019.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Buy, sell, hold from B Jammin. If Freeman goes undefeated this year, wins 2 more New Year's Six Bowls, 4 total, and the national championship, his career will have passed the accomplishments of Lou Holtz, 1 national championship, 4 New Year's Six Bowl games, partly because of the era he coaches in. Navigating through a 12-team playoff, recruiting is harder, and having to manage the portal and NIL.
Oh, I'm gonna sell that. There are things that I could point to that were true in 1988 that made it harder back then also. I mean, travel to recruiting nationally was a lot harder then. It wasn't as easy to get around the country as it is now. Not that they were flying Wright Brothers planes back in 1988, but just travel in general was a lot different back in 1988. Notre Dame was on TV a lot, but it was a little bit of a different deal. There were parts of the country where some kids maybe hadn't heard of Notre Dame as much. And so, like I look at it, Trev, I think that every era is different. Notre Dame didn't have the facilities back then that could compete with other top programs. They do now. And the part of what made Lou Holtz so good is Lou Holtz's 6 New Year's 6 bowl game victories were done over the period of a number of years. He couldn't get two a year the way that Marcus Freeman is able to. We also are arguing from the standpoint of, well, we think this is harder. We don't know how Lou Holtz would have been. I've argued that if Lou Holtz was coaching in a 14 playoff era, he'd have more than 1 title. Because I think there's absolutely years where that football team, if they'd have got into a 4 or a 12-team playoff, would have been very dangerous. Very dangerous. Just go ask Florida, number 3 Florida, when they had to play Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl with Jerome Bettis and Reggie Brooks and those guys. So, no, go ask the Texas. I think what was Texas A&M? I think Texas A&M was top 4 when Notre Dame played them at the end of the 1992 season as well. So, there's plenty of years where Notre Dame could have had a shot to be even more successful had they got into the playoffs. Yeah, Notre Dame in 2009 or 1982, because they had an upset loss to Stanford at home that year, and they never climbed up higher than 5th. Their last 4 games of that season, Notre Dame beat number 9 Boston College 54-7. They beat number 22 Penn State 17-16 in the Snow Bowl. They beat number 19 USC on the road 31-23, and then they beat number 4 Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl 28-3. So they were playing really good football by the end of that year. That had been a team that would have been very difficult to beat in the postseason that year. I think I would have liked to see that Notre Dame team play that Alabama team that year that beat Miami. That was not a very good Miami team, in my opinion. It was a very good Alabama team, but that would have been a fun game to watch. So, no, I don't think it was harder. I don't think it was better. He's going to have success over a period of time. Now, 2-3 years down the road, they're still doing this, sure. But how about we just say Lou Holtz was a great coach, and if Marcus Freeman does what you say, he's also a great coach. We don't need to compare eras because we don't know how Marcus Freeman would have done back then. We don't know how Lou Holtz would do now. You know, I'd say this, like, if Lou Holtz had the portal in NIL, good Lord, you know, they would have recruited even better than they did back then. But no, Marcus Freeman's got to do more than just that to me to surpass Lou Holtz, who did it over a 6-7 year span. So, yeah.
It's definitely the longevity question for me. I mean, we're talking about a coach in Lou Holtz who went like 64-9-1 from 88 to 93. You know, I gotta see Marcus Freeman do it for more than just 2 seasons, albeit It would be a fantastic run. Might be the best run that Notre Dame football's gone on in 30 years.
Since Lou Holtz was coach. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I would have to see it play out a little longer because I'm not the biggest fan of like the longevity conversation, but when it comes to coaches, it's a little different, especially in college, because your roster can look different every year. And, there's a lot more factors that you have to, get, like unlike the NFL, you can't just pay a quarterback a max contract. You just have your guy for the next decade, and so it plays a part. So I'd need to see him do it a little longer.
I think longevity matters when you're talking about anything, if we're talking about equal success. The guy's great for 5 years and another guy was great for 10 years. Give me the guy that was great for 10 years. Where I would agree with you is when you're in situations where one guy was great for 5 years, another guy was good for 10. Who's the better player? It's the guy that was great. But like when you're talking about, it's not like Marcus Freeman in 4 years would have accomplished something that then surpasses what Lou Holtz did. Because even if he wins 2 New Year's 6 bowl games this year, he's still trailing Lou Holtz for those type of games. I mean, in a 6-year span at Notre Dame, Lou Holtz won the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl twice, and the Sugar Bowl. And they weren't beating bums in those years. You know what I mean? Like in 1988, Notre Dame beat a top 5 team in the Fiesta Bowl. They beat number 3 West Virginia Fiesta Bowl. In 1989, they beat number 1 Colorado 21-6 in the Orange Bowl. They lost to Colorado by a point in 1990 in the Orange Bowl, a game that I think they got screwed on that final play. The next year, they beat number 3 Florida by 11 in the Sugar Bowl. The next year, they beat Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl by 25. And then the next year, they beat Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl 24-21. So not only did they win 5 New Year's 6 bowls in 6 years, and the one loss they had was a 1-point loss. Their first 4 wins were double-digit victories. They weren't just getting by, beating teams 27-24. They were smacking people. So no, he's going to have to do it for a couple more years. And Irish Gordy Knott made a great point. Imagine if Lou Holtz had the support of the current administration. That's a great point. Marcus Freeman would not have the success he had right now if the school didn't back him. And that's true for a lot of coaches. Lou Holtz is one of the few people that won in spite of success, support from the school. That's a great point, IGK. Great point.
By so hold, you have to take one player on the spring roster from offense and move him to defense, and one player on the defense and move him to offense for the rest of the season. The pick would be Anthony Knapp to defensive tackle and Luke Talich to wide receiver.
I'd sell that, Trev. Those wouldn't be my picks. If you're going to take an offensive lineman and move him to defensive tackle or move some of the defensive line, it wouldn't be him. I'd move Devin Houston back to defense, and I'd probably move Preston Zinner to tight end. I mean, I'm not taking a starter from one position and making him a backup at another. Luke Talich isn't starting a receiver for Notre Dame. And if I was going to take a safety at moving a receiver, it'd either be Bronte Johnson or Jadon Blair. It'd probably be Jadon because he's 6'5". Luke, I'll leave him on defense. Anthony Knapp, I'm not taking a starting offensive lineman and making him be a backup defensive lineman. Whereas Preston Zenner, I think, moves up the depth chart if he moves to tight end. So that would be my thing, is I'd move Devin Houston back to defense. There's really nobody on offense right now because Cooper Flanagan is injured that I'd want to move to defense. And really, James Flanagan's the only other one that I would even consider at this point in time. Yeah.
Yep. We see that the same. And even James Flanagan's going to be needed for depth, like we've talked about this offseason. So, yeah, if I had to choose any of the safeties, I would have chosen Jadon.
Mm-hmm.
Biso hold from BK's personal chef. By the end of week 1, both the offensive line and defensive line starters will be set.
Sell. I mean, something's going to happen. And honestly, I'm not even thinking O-line. I'm thinking more D-line. I mean, you're going to see different starters all year for different reasons. Some of it will be matchup related. Sometimes if they're playing a team that's tempo. And then when you have as much talented youth as they have, somebody's going to step up and kind of earn a job. There'll be injuries. So I'll sell that. There'll be movement. I'm okay if that's true. I think it's good for the program if that's true. I love continuity, but it's just something's going to happen.
Biso hold, Max Hurleman signing with the Steelers is proof, one of the key points that kept so many players at Notre Dame this year, avoiding huge portal losses. Opportunities aren't short-term or limited to starting roles at this university.
Buy that. Means the kid that came over here from Colgate as a running back, moved over to DB, was the punt returner for Notre Dame this year, played a lot of special teams, and now he's getting signed by the Steelers. The odds of him making the team are probably not great, but he's not getting signed if he doesn't come over from Colgate. I doubt he gets signed out of Colgate. I doubt he even gets that chance. He still would have earned it because he's the same player. He would have been a talented enough player, but it's about the opportunity and exposure, in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Biso hold, Tyler Buckner at quarterback would lead Notre Dame to the playoffs and through at least one win in said playoff game if some awful dire situation required him to play or start, assuming he starts every game this year.
So Tyler Buckner, quarterback, would lead Notre Dame to the playoffs and through at least one win in said playoff if some awful dire situation required him to play or start, assuming he starts every game this season. No, I'm going to sell that. Like, listen, if Tyler Buckner would have stayed at Notre Dame and stayed at quarterback, then I'd buy that. But the reality is he's not that same guy that he was. He left Notre Dame for Alabama and then comes back to Notre Dame, spent a whole year at receiver, spent this offseason at receiver, and now we're going to ask him to transition back to being a starting quarterback, and we're going to say, go win minimum 10 games, if not more. Sell that. And that's not saying, well, I've changed my mind on him as a quarterback. I have changed my mind on him as a quarterback in the present day because he spent the last 2 years not playing quarterback. So if he would have stayed at Notre Dame and not left for Alabama, then I would buy this with ease. But that moment's gone. That moment's passed. What we said is Tyler Buckner can get you out of a game if you needed to right now. But no, I just don't see that. I don't see that. I'd love to be wrong, but I don't see that.
I'm tempted to buy the first part. Like we've talked about it before. As I think there's a lot of quarterbacks on Notre Dame's roster that could get them to the playoffs in a 12 team. I don't know if they host. I don't know if they win that first playoff game. But I don't think they win a playoff game with him at quarterback because of all the things that Brian said.
So let me just make sure we're clear. So if Tyler Buckner had to start all 12 games, you think he leads his team to the playoffs?
Mm-hmm. And it's not so much because of Tyler Buckner. It's just at the supporting cast of what it was. I mean, I said that about obviously we said it about Steve and Kenny, or CJ and Kenny. I said it about Steve. I mean, Blake Hebert's a true freshman, but I mean, really after the first 2 games, I think Notre Dame has a pretty favorable schedule. I don't know if the victories would look like they would if I don't know if they're beating anybody 51-14, but I think they would go 10-2 and get in the back half of the playoffs. Buy, sell, hold from Mr. Emil Wagner. Texas will be the #1 state in terms of volume for 4 and 5 stars, according to IB evaluation for the Notre Dame roster over the next several years.
Oh, man, I don't hand out a lot of 5 stars. So, obviously 4 stars, sure. I'm actually going to sell that, Trevor, because I think that state that's going to have the most 4 and 5 stars, honestly, is going to be North Carolina. I could see that. I think Texas will be in the conversation, but I mean, like if you look at this year's recruiting class and where Notre Dame is right now, I mean, you've got what, 3 guys from North Carolina already, and you've got 2 from Texas, and there's guys from both states on the board, but right now you've also got 3 guys from Florida. So Texas isn't even number 2 right now. If Notre Dame were to land Jonas Walton today, then that would give them 2 guys from Georgia, which would then tie Texas. Now there's more guys on the board from that state, but yeah, I mean, you've got Noah Grubbs, Dylan Faison, and Aiden Pouncey. So that's 3 guys from Florida. You've got 3 players from North Carolina. You've got Rodney Dunham, Ebenezer Iwatade, and Thomas Davis Jr. Notre Dame is still recruiting several players from Georgia, as we mentioned. Obviously, Jonas Walton, Dre Quinn, some other guys. They also have 3 players from the state of Michigan on their roster in Sullivan Garvin, Ben Nichols, and Gregory Patrick. So, and then Texas, there's only 2 guys right now from Texas. You've got Tiki Hola and Javian Osborne. So, I'm not ready to jump into Texas will be #1 from a volume standpoint. I think I'm going to sell that. I think between North Carolina, you've got Georgia's in that conversation, Florida's in that conversation, for the next several years. I think it's going to be similar. Texas will be in the conversation, Mr. Emil Wagner. So I'm not going to say they're not, but I think there's going to be some years where you only get like 1 guy from Texas. Like this is a year I think Notre Dame has a shot to get multiple guys from Texas. I think they'll get at least 3 guys from Texas in this class. But there's going to be years where they get 4 from North Carolina and only 1 from Texas, or 3 from Georgia and only 1 from Texas. So I'm gonna sell that. But the fact that Texas will be in the top 3 to 4 makes me very happy. But what are the states we're talking about? We're talking about North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and Michigan. Those are very talent-rich states.
Yeah.
And, there's multiple guys from Pennsylvania on the board right now. Right now, Notre Dame has a commitment from Tyler Merrill from the state of Pennsylvania. But they're also trying to get Grayson McHugh on the offensive line for Pennsylvania. They're still recruiting Joey O'Brien from the state of Pennsylvania. So they're not done trying to recruit that state either. So I love that balance. I do. I really do love that balance. So it's going to make it hard for one state to dominate that way. But if I had to pick one, it'd probably be North Carolina over Texas.
Good deal. It is cool that Texas is in the conversation, though. It's a good spot to be. Buy, sell, hold. If we don't land Kaden Finley or Braden Robinson at wide receiver, but do land Joey O'Brien, the coaching staff will have to at least consider moving Dallas Golden or Joey O'Brien to wide receiver.
No, not Dallas Golden. I think the staff is going to have a conversation about, letting Joey O'Brien play both sides of the ball anyway, just because they kind of have to now because Penn State's opened up that can of worms. It's kind of like when Jerry Tillery was recruited as an offensive lineman and then LSU in an attempt to flip him from Notre Dame, convinced him he was a defensive lineman. And so Jerry went along with that and told Notre Dame he wanted to play D-line, and they said, okay. And so they let him move. So, and it worked out. He had a good career at Notre Dame as a D tackle. Obviously, he was a first-round draft pick, but Dallas Golden, I don't see happening. There's more of a need there. I could see Joey O'Brien potentially being there, but I think where I would sell it also, Trev, is if they don't get Kaden Finley or Braden Robinson, they're not going to not keep recruiting receivers. And there's at least one guy on the board that I like where Notre Dame stands that I think is even better than one of those 2 guys. So I'm gonna sell that. Yeah. For Dallas Golden, but The reason that they'll consider, and the other reason I'm selling, they may consider moving Joey O'Brien, but it won't be because they missed out on Caden Finley and Braden Robinson.
Hmm.
It'll just be because that's the recruiting pitch that they have to balance.
Weissel hold no other Notre Dame injury has been more regrettable than Jalen Smith's injury in the Fiesta Bowl, considering the talent level and prediction of draft position, time of injury, and the pure likability of the athlete.
The reason I'm only hesitating is I'm just trying to think if there's anybody else, but I'm going to be hard pressed to find anybody else that just in the devastating nature of the injury. It wasn't so he's never been the same guy. I'll buy that. It's a testament to how good he was that he was still able to carve out the NFL career that he did even with that injury. I think that just speaks volumes to how talented Jalen Smith was. I mean, wasn't there a year for the Cowboys? Didn't he have 100 tackles one year?
Oh, in like multiple years.
So yeah, that just says a lot about the kind of athlete he was when you consider just the devastating nature of what he went through. He was a Pro Bowler in his third year. So missed that 2016 season, came back. Yeah, 3 years in a row. 2 years in a row, Trevi was over 140 tackles. So, yeah. And then just kind of fell off a cliff after that. Just wasn't the same guy, which you kind of expected. That was going to be one of those deteriorating injuries. Just the nature of it. Still, yeah, it's still disappointing.
Yeah, no, it was tough. I mean, there's other players in contention. I think Jalen Smith is probably still the top one. BMO's injury this past season was rough. I love the emergence of Leonard Moore, but there is a lot of what could have been. I know a lot of people talked about, what if Notre Dame had like a Riley Mills and a Ben Morrison in the national championship? I'm not saying they would have won, but would Notre Dame have gone down at one point 31-7? Who knows? Julian Love in 2018, I still think about that. I mean, it was a 3-3 ball game before he got hurt. And then Clemson rattled off 21 unanswered the second he wasn't in the game. That's tough. But yeah, Jalen Smith's for me was that one was rough. Buy, sell, hold from ND for life. Navy versus Notre Dame being a primetime game.
I mean, I'm fine with it. I'll buy it. I don't have an issue with it being a night game. I'm not anti-night game. I'm not like they have no business playing Navy and night. No, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have anything against it. It just shocked me. I didn't expect it. You just think you're going to get maybe a little bit of a bigger draw, but you've got two long-term rivals left on your schedule. I don't consider Stanford a long-term rivalry. That didn't become a regular thing until the 90s. So, and two of those two teams are both at home, and you want to play them in a night game. All right, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't excite like, oh, that's awesome. It's a night game, but it's also like, what the F is that? Why is it a night? No, I don't feel either one of those ways. Pardon my language, but yeah, I don't feel either one of those ways. I'm fine with it. If they want to do that, I'm fine with it. It is what it is.
Yeah, I guess hold, I suppose. Don't love it, don't hate it. I'm very impartial. So it is what it is. Buy, sell, hold, Notre Dame having the deepest, most talented running back depth in college football this season.
I'll certainly buy that. I mean, you could argue that there are some units that deserve to be in that conversation as 1-2 punches. Penn State obviously being the most obvious one, but there's others. People, some SEC homers will want to start talking about Texas now that they're getting CJ Baxter back, even though, CJ Baxter's never even had the kind of season that Jadarian Price had, much less the kind of season that what Jeremiah Love has had, but they had a kid last year that was 1,000-yard rusher and had 5 whopping touchdowns last year in the Wisner kid. And Jarrett Gibson is a freshman last year at 377 yards. You're getting CJ Baxter back, who had 659 yards and 5 touchdowns and averaged a stout 4.8 yards per carry. But, that's going to be more SEC homerism than it is actually having a backfield as good and as deep as Notre Dame's. The big difference between Notre Dame and Penn State is simply the depth. I mean, it's just, you could argue their 1-2 punches is good, but they just don't have the depth. Honestly, I think the best backfield in the SEC this year is going to be down in College Station when you talk about depth, because they're getting like we talked about, they're getting I keep wanting to say Dalton Brooks, but Dalton Brooks is the kid. Dalton Brooks is the kid that they landed at running back.
Ruben
Owens. Yeah, I keep wanting to say
Yeah.
Dalton Brooks, but it's Ruben Owens. Dalton Brooks is a kid that also played running back in high school, but he's been a safety for them. But, you've got Le'Veon Moss coming back, who, if he doesn't get hurt last year, is a 1,000-yard runner. He was at 765, and he only played 9 games. If he'd have played the final regular season games and then the bowl game, he's over 1,000. In my opinion. You've got Amari Daniels, who's a really good, shifty back. You have, E.J. Smith was a solid player for them last year, but you're replacing him with Ruben Owens, who, has some potential and some upside. He's got a lot to prove. I think he had 300-some yards as a freshman, but he's talented. I think that'll end up being the best backfield in the SEC this year. I think Georgia will still have a good backfield, but it's not in the same league as Notre Dame's.
No.
Like I said, I think Bama will have a solid backfield this year, but it won't be a vintage backfield. That would have been a much more dangerous backfield if Justice Haynes hadn't transferred. And I think Michigan's going to have a really good 1-2 punch this year also with Justice Haynes. And if Jordan Marshall can continue coming back from his knee injury, he's a really good player as well. They could have a really good backfield this year, but it won't be like Notre Dame's. I mean, Ohio State had a 1-2 punch as good as what Notre Dame had last year. But again, Notre Dame had better depth. This year, C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples will not be in the same league as what Notre Dame has. So I can't think of anybody in college football that's going to have anything close to what Notre Dame is going to have from just a 1-6 standpoint. And only Penn State, in my opinion, is even in the conversation for 1-2 punch. Who's got a sneaky, really good and deep backfield is Louisville.
Yeah.
They have a really good, deep backfield that won't get as much love because it's Louisville, but like McElroy, I think, had their starting back really high in his rankings, and they've got some other kids coming back. They lost one of their backs for sure from last year, but they got a really good backfield.
Yeah, this is a definite buy for me. Depth, overall talent, top level talent, they have it all. One of the most talented backfields that Notre Dame is going to face in the regular season, kind of going back to the first buy sell hold from ND for Life, is Navy. With Blake Horvath and Eli Heidenreich and Alex Teska. I mean, it's one of the more proven, talented backfields that they'll face this season. So it'll be interesting to see who else kind of emerges in the kind of same league or around the same league as what Notre Dame and Penn State have. So buy sell hold, Jalen Smith signing with the Raiders.
The guy, he wants to still play. Good for him. Somebody's willing to give him a shot. Good for him. I hope it works out.
Agreed.
A buddy asked me, why would he do this? And I'm like, he's only 29 years old, buddy. He's not ready to hang it up. He was an elite athlete at one point in time. He wants another shot to play, and good for him. I hope it works out for him. I hope he can stay healthy.
Buy sell hold, a 16-team playoff being another reason why Notre Dame will stay independent for the foreseeable future.
I'll say this by that. There's this notion that Notre Dame's going to be forced to go to join a conference, and it's so irrational and just shallow and just nonsensical. I'll say what I've said all along, Trev. The only way Notre Dame's forced to join a conference is if they make a rule saying that you have to be in a conference to be eligible for the playoff. And then that would likely be followed by Notre Dame suing that committee who makes up that rule. And if they lose that lawsuit, then they'll join a conference. But expanding the opportunities for a playoff where Notre Dame has literally has a built-in automatic bid if they win, if they're ranked, I think it's in the top 12 or something like that, they're automatically in. There's nothing that in any way, shape, form, or fashion right now that's going to have Notre Dame feeling any kind of pressure to join the league. Well, teams are just going to not play them. Do you guys really still actually think that? Did you see Clemson just sign a 12-year contract with Notre Dame? Guys, people are going to play Notre Dame. And as more leagues start to get into the whole, you get paid based on, your rev share from TV monies based on your TV ratings, you're going to see a lot of teams, especially those middle-of-the-road teams that are trying to climb their way up. Hey, Notre Dame, would you like to play us every other year? You'll see that. You'll absolutely see that.
Yeah. I mean, in my lifetime, every major change to college football has been followed by some afterthought of, is this going to be what makes Notre Dame join a conference? I mean, it's been everything. The transfer portal, NIL, the 4-team playoff, the 12-team playoff, teams going from grass to turf, putting jumbotrons in stadiums. Like it's literally everything has been, is this the straw that breaks the camel's back for Notre Dame?
Yes. And the most like, oh, so-and-so joined the Conference USA. Is this ultimately the move if I do all this? I mean, it's like no matter what happens, like, is this what finally forces Notre Dame to join a conference? I'm like, I'm not really sure what that has to do with Notre Dame and being in the conference, but whatevs. Like, okay, you guys keep doing whatever you do. Keep talking about Notre Dame, joining the league so that way you have something to talk about, I guess, in the offseason. But it's so funny when you see that stuff because you're like, you guys really just don't have a clue, do you? Just don't have a clue. It's maddening.
Buy, sell, hold again from ND for Life. Eliminating Ohio State as long as Notre Dame is meeting or working with Marcus Freeman on his current and future requests pertaining to the staff and players. Will only leave for the NFL and not another college program.
Sell? No, I'll sell that ND for Life because I'm just coming to grips with the fact that people are just going to keep asking about Marcus Freeman leaving, and there's nothing that we're going to be able to say to get him to stop. You never know what's going through the mind of someone who is a competitor. Let's say Marcus Freeman wins 3 national championships, and he's just kind of like, what else do I have to prove here? I get this other challenge somewhere else. I mean, coaches do that all the time where, look, I've had some success here. I want to go prove myself at somewhere different. Could be the NFL, but we don't know that. Right now, the leadership at Notre Dame is very supportive of the football program. Can I guarantee that Notre Dame's leadership will be just as supportive in 5 years? No, I can't, because I've been a Notre Dame fan for 40 years, and I know that comes and goes. So I'm going to sell it. I could see him leaving for another college if circumstances change, good or bad. I mean, who knows? I have no idea. But I'm not gonna keep talking about it. And if it happens, it happens. But you never know. Circumstances today aren't going to be the circumstances in 5 years.
Yeah,
could be better, could be worse, but it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, I'm pleading the fifth on this one. He's here now, and I'm ready to enjoy the 2025 season.
For sure.
That's all I got. Buy, sell, hold from Older Than Dirt. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon one's point of view, the offensive line, as now expected with the players away from campus before summer workouts, will not be the offensive line that starts against Miami.
So, I think what we expect the offensive line to be, left to right, Knapp, Schrouth, Craig, Jagasaw, and Wagner will be the starting lineup barring injury.
Yep, we see that the same. Sell for me as well. Buy, sell, hold from Aiden Benami. Coach Freeman would jump into a pool with his T-shirt off after he landed a recruit.
Sell, and I just want to move past this odd question and move on to something
do you not know what that's in pertains to?
I have no clue.
Dan Lanning landed a recruit, and they celebrated together by jumping in a pool.
That's just weird. So sell. Marcus Freeman's not weird.
I got one for buy, sell, hold. That what Dan Lanning did is weirder than what Brian Kelly did dancing on that,
grinding on that kid who he didn't even get. He didn't even get that kid.
I know. Buy, sell, hold. Coach Freeman would accept a commitment from a player without confirming, acknowledging with the player's family.
Sell.
Yeah. Buy, sell, hold. Coach Freeman would tell Josh Pate that he wanted to change the culture so much he got the team soft. Sharman was specifically mentioned, like Chad Bowden said in his interview with Josh Pate.
So Marcus Freeman would never disrespect the previous coaching staff in that manner. He's too classy for that. So,
yep. Buy, sell, hold. The best position group for Notre Dame's 2026 recruiting class will be the defensive line and offensive line. Has done a 180.
Al has done a 180.
Oh, okay.
I got the confusion as well, but yeah, I buy it for now. I mean, for now, it's their. I mean, with Ebenezer Iwatade, Rodney Dunham, and Tiki Hole, it's arguably their strongest position now. But I think old Joe Rudolph is going to have something to say about that as well. You know what I mean? Like, especially if he's able to get Grayson McHugh, he may be like, hold on a second now. They got 3, we got 5, and then Al Golden's going to come out and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and add this guy and this guy to that list and, in that battle. And then Jaywan Sider's going to be like, hold on a second. I'm batting 1,000 for top 100 recruits in my class, and we have 2. Name me a better 2-man group in the country. So, I mean, it's possible. It's definitely. I'll buy that it's possible, and I would buy that it's probably the best group right now, with all due respect to the offensive line class, which is really good. The offensive line class right now for me has 1 top 100 recruit. The D-line class has 2. So, offensive line class has 4. The lines are battling right now for who has the best class, and that's how it should be at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And it's not just because other positions are struggling. It's just Joe Rudolph's 26 class, in my opinion, especially if he gets Grayson McHugh, will be his best offensive line haul so far. And if Al Washington finishes the way that I think he'll finish in the 26th class, that'll also be his best haul so far. And when we're sitting there having this conversation, I think it's those 2 groups will most likely be the ones we're arguing about who has the best haul in this class.
Absolutely. Buy, sell, hold from D-Troll Hunter. The best overall athlete on the team is not in the running back room.
Oh, boy. Oh, man. I'm going to sell that. I look at some players like a Leonard Moore. I think Leonard Moore is faster than Jeremiah Love. I don't know that he's a better all-around athlete. Then wide receiver, I don't see an athlete there better than Jeremiah Love. I don't see an athlete at linebacker, D-line, O-line, tight end. Yeah, I'm going to sell that. I mean, it's not D-Troll Hunter. It's not one where I'm like, what are you, nuts? There's nobody in Jeremiah Love's league. No, I get it. And pound for pound, there's some other guys you could look at. I mean, pound for pound, Josh Burnham's an outstanding athlete. Pound for pound, you could look at a guy like Jalen Sneed as just an athlete and be like, that's a really impressive athlete. Leonard Moore, Christian Gray, Dallas Golden, Jadon Blair, Bronte Johnson are very athletic football players. But I'm going to have to still probably go with Jeremiah Love.
Yeah. Yep, I'm with you. Buy, sell, hold. Oklahoma arguably having the best offseason in college football per Bill Connolly.
Did you see that article, Trev?
Mm-mm.
I'm going to send you this article, and I want you to kind of skim through it as I'm talking.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the wildest things I've seen, and it just kind of continues just the silliness that is coming from ESPN right now when it comes to not just Notre Dame, but other programs. So, like, one of the things that was funny from this, where are you at, Trev? There you are. So let me send you that article so you can kind of skim through it. But it was funny reading through this, and let me find it here real quick. So Bill Connolly and some other writers wrote this, but they're talking about who won the offseason and key additions, key departures, top incoming recruits. They talk about best coaching move, what went wrong, what went right, whatever. And then Connolly's take says, he says, no one needed a good offseason more desperately than Venables, but he probably put together the best offseason in college football. We'll see if it translates to wins against another brutal schedule, but Arbuckle, Mateer, and company should produce a solid turnaround in the points department offseason national champions. And then they rank them as the number 2 team in the SEC. As far as behind LSU, as far as who won the offseason. It's like, do you guys not even like read each other's rankings? Like, I know that there's multiple people in this thing, but like, if you know they're not going to be number 1, you don't put something like that in there. You say they're one of the contenders, but you call them the offseason national champions. Like, what are we doing here? But it's just the same crap, Trev. Like, I read Notre Dame's, and they talk about what went wrong. And, Notre Dame knew it would be losing several defensive standouts to the NFL, which played out during the draft weekend. The Irish aren't a volume transfer portal team and returned a large group of defenders with starting experience, but the team's defensive transfer additions might have been a tad underwhelming. outside of defensive backs, Devontae Smith and Jalen Stroman. You just named half of their signees in the portal. Like, that's half their guys. You act like they had 10 guys and the only 2 that impress you are those 2. And I'm like, all right, I would be willing to bet you the guy that wrote that has, if I told you, hey, what are your thoughts of Jared Dawson as a player? He'd be like, who? Oh, that guy. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen him play. It's so lazy. You just added an ACC defensive tackle that had 6.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks last year in 10 games. Literally put up better numbers than Howard Cross did last year in 3 or 4 less games. And it's just like, dude, what are we doing here? They didn't sign any linebackers in the portal. Didn't need any. No mention of, hey, Notre Dame's not a big portal team, and they didn't have any big portal needs. And you know why else they didn't go to the portal for more guys? You know why they didn't go to the portal for more corners, Trev, or more defensive ends or safeties? Because they're loaded there. They're loaded there. And the guy they did get in the portal at safety may not even start. It's just so lazy, and I'm just so tired of the lazy takes. And then they continue, and this obsession that they have with 3 offensive linemen with starting experience: Pat Coogan, Rocco Spindler, and Sam Pendleton, all transferred out. Are you guys literally that unaware of why they transferred out? Are you guys seriously that unaware of why they transferred out? We're going to talk about what went wrong. That's not when you lose starters because they're not going to start, that's not a what went wrong. That's a what went right. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? And again, when you talk about what went wrong for LSU, I'm reading what went wrong for LSU. They'll talk about losing Bryce Underwood. And then they say the Tigers end up losing only 2 starters, receiver CJ Daniels and Sage Ryan, among the 22 scholarship players who entered the portal after the season. Are we just going to pretend and ignore the fact that they lost 4 starting offensive linemen? You guys have multiple articles and have made a very key point to the fact that Notre Dame lost 3 transfer portal guys from their offensive line because they weren't going to start, but we're just going to ignore the fact that LSU lost 4 starting offensive linemen from an offensive line that wasn't even that good last year. It's so lazy. It is so lazy, Trev. And they talk about what went right. The Irish kept their most important players. Likely prevented a significant dip and set up another push for the college football playoff national title. You guys are talking out of both sides of your mouth on that sentence. Although teams can never have enough capable offensive linemen, and some of the transfer departures sting, Notre Dame retained younger, more talented players who could form one of the nation's best O-lines for multiple seasons. Even when you say something positive, you almost talk it down at the beginning of it. Heisman Trophy candidate Jeremiah Love returns, but so do Jadarian Price and Aeneas Williams. So Notre Dame will have arguably the nation's top running back room. The Irish also address their biggest offensive need at wide receiver, transfers Fields and Will Pauling. And then Connolly's take, who is just awful, by the way. He says Freeman didn't need a ton of portal additions. We'll see if he brought in enough at receiver, and we'll be banking on a young blue chip player quarterback. Replacing Golden with Ash feels pretty uninspiring, but Lord knows Ash will inherit some experienced players. I would love to find out what he said about the hire of Al Golden. I'd love to know that. But it's just the whole thing is just so lazy. It's even when you guys compliment Notre Dame, you got some lame backhanded compliment in there. And Oklahoma's the offseason national champions. Are you serious? Are you guys going to ignore all the guys they lost from their team last year? Come on, man. It's ridiculous. Look, John Mateer's a good football player, but he was part of an 8-5 team that played mostly a group of 5 schedule. And he's going to come to a team that went 6-7 and turn them around. What are we doing here? It's so ridiculous.
I just went through and skimmed it. It's a pretty bad article. Not that it's surprising. If I'm just going to be 100% honest, it was funny that he ended the what went wrong for Oklahoma with, but questions remain over whether the Sooners did enough to bolster the wide receiver and offensive line units that cratered their season a year ago. Doesn't really talk about the offensive line with what went right, and then called them the offseason national champions.
That O-line thing's kind of an important deal.
Yeah.
You know? It's like
it is an important deal. Notre Dame lost 3 transfer portal offensive linemen, dude.
yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lame. So absolutely lame.
Oh, well. Bisa hold Bo Prabula is a downgrade from Brady Cook.
Which version of Brady Cook? That's my question. If it's this past year's Brady Cook, then no, I don't think that's a downgrade. If we're talking about 2023 version of Brady Cook, sure, that's a downgrade. But it's kind of like Howard Cross. Notre Dame's not replacing 2023 Howard Cross. They're replacing 2024 Howard Cross, which is an easier thing to do. So, like Brady Cook, I keep wanting to say Brady Quinn. Brady Cook last year passed for 2,500 yards, averaged 7.9 yards per attempt, had 11 touchdowns and 2 picks last year. Rushed for 5 touchdowns and was hurt multiple games. He missed a couple games with injury, including a game that they won. So I don't. Everybody likes to bang on Drew Pine for how poorly he played against Alabama, but he did lead them to a win with 3 touchdown passes against the offseason national champs last season in Oklahoma. So they went 2-1 in games where he took the majority of the snaps. So, yeah. Is he an upgrade over 2023 version of Brady Cook? No. Is he an upgrade over 2024 version of Brady Cook? Yes. I don't think that's a huge move. I'm not a huge Bo Prabula guy, but Brady Cook was very average last year. If he's just above average, he's better than what Brady Cook was last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold. The Incarnate World portal quarterback pipeline continues to the Power 4 level this season. Zach Calzada will join the list of former A&M quarterbacks under Jimbo Fisher, who showed that he was the issue holding back their development.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell that one because I think he had more issues than just Jimbo Fisher. So yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. He was good there. I have some strong feelings about him, but he also played at Auburn for a year and was missed the season because of an injury, and then he transferred to Incarnate Word, and he was a good player there, but I'm not a huge fan of Zach Calzada. I'll just leave it at that. If he proves me wrong, he proves me wrong. But yeah,
fair enough.
Jimbo Fisher gets a lot of crap, but he also helped turn Kellen Mond into a 3rd-round draft pick. It's not like the guy was a complete waste. He also coached Jameis Winston, who's pretty decent. So I think some of that stuff, he wasn't a good quarterback developer at the end because he kept trying to recruit guys that had a certain skill set, but then fit them into a completely different offense. That was the issue. I've never been very high on Zach Calzada, and I'll continue that until he proves me otherwise.
Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame not making ESPN top 10 overall offseason winners.
Well, I'll buy that based on the criteria that they use mostly, but then they talk about Clemson, being one of the offseason winners because they kept everybody, and then they just kind of ignore that when it comes to Notre Dame. It's just very odd. But I buy that because I would be shocked if ESPN ever gave Notre Dame that kind of offseason credit. Shocked. Some of the things I'm seeing, Trev, like some of these recruiting rankings that I see for portal guys, it's like I'm seeing like Kevin Concepcion ranked as a better portal pickup than Malachi Fields and Dane Key and Barian Brown and all these guys either from the SEC or going to the SEC. And it's like, hold on a second. You're putting these ACC receivers who had less production and better quarterbacks than Malachi Fields above Malachi Fields in the rankings. Like, I'll bet you if he would have gone to Alabama, you'd rank him differently. I bet you if he'd have picked Georgia, you'd rank him differently. Are we still ranking Malachi or Zechariah Branch off of what he did in high school? Because I saw 247 had him as the number 2 receiver prospect in the portal. Based on what? So if Jaden Greathouse would have jumped in the portal, you think there's any chance he'd have any close to the love that Zechariah Branch and Eric Singleton are getting, even though he was a better player? No. And it doesn't mean that the guys I'm mentioning aren't good players. Doesn't mean the guy that LSU got isn't a good player, but he's not the player. He hasn't been the player that Malachi Fields has been. The point is there is a very clear bias on what they talk about. And it just gets old after a while. It really does. But hey, good. Keep disrespecting Notre Dame. Let Marcus Freeman have that disrespect card still in his back pocket. Like, Dabo's in there thinking, like, are you seriously going to rank us number one? Are you kidding me? You guys are ruining my whole offseason approach of the disrespect card. Will you guys stop it? Marcus Freeman's like, no, keep it up. Give us all that disrespect. Yes. Yes, please do. Please
Come on,
do.
man. That's not going to stop Dabo Swinney. In a year where he was the AP number one team, the number one team going into the playoffs, number one team in the first playoff rankings, he's still, after they won the national championship, undefeated. He's like, nobody expected us to be here. It's like, buddy, everybody expected you to be here.
Exactly.
Like from April, everybody expected you to be here, my guy. Yeah. Dabo will still play, but yeah, it'll carry a little bit more weight in South Bend.
Yeah.
That is for sure. Buy, sell, hold. Chili, stew, chicken noodle soup.
I'm a chili guy. They're all good, but I'm a chili guy. I actually had chili before the show today. I made my chicken chili yesterday, so I had some for lunch today.
Yeah, I'm
always
buy,
make
sell,
a lot of extra.
Yep. Oh, have to. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold in that order. Chili, stew, chicken noodle soup.
Depends on the type of stew, but yeah, normally that'd be mine too. Yeah. A food thing we agree on, Trev. I think that might be the first food thing that we're completely 100% on the same page. We always have like one or that will be a little bit different on.
Buy, sell, hold from JG Whitetown. Clemson and Miami do not win the ACC championship.
I'll sell that. I mean, right now my prediction's Clemson. I mean, I don't think Miami's going to win it. I think there's other teams capable of it, but right now you're asking a lot of portal guys at Louisville to come together to give them a chance. I think SMU's chance to win it was last year more so than this year. Georgia Tech's a sneaky team that you and I both think very highly of this year. If they can figure some things out along the lines, and if their defense can just get a little bit better, and if they got to keep Haynes King healthy. If he plays a full year, a healthy year, Georgia Tech can make some noise. But I still think Clemson's the best team in the ACC, and they're my prediction right now. So I'll sell that.
Yeah, I'm selling that as well. Clemson's also my prediction. Buy, sell, hold. Georgia doesn't make the playoffs.
Man, I'm so back and forth on this, Trevor. I'm gonna sell that for now, just because there's still a lot of question marks with, like, there's gonna be 3 SEC teams in the playoff this year, if at least. And while I don't think Georgia I don't have them in the championship right now. I think Texas is the best team in the ACC. I think Bama's ahead of them, but I still have Georgia as my 3rd ACC team. Me saying Georgia's taking a step down is not me saying they're going to finish like 8-4. I think even at 9-3, that's still probably a playoff team because their schedule's so much harder than what Bama and South Carolina and Ole Misses were last year. And what thing I'll give Kirby credit for is he doesn't lose to bad teams. When he loses, they're good losses. You're not seeing Kirby. It's last time he had a bad loss would probably 19 when they lost to like 4-8 South Carolina.
Yeah,
it's probably his worst loss. I mean, this year they lost to an Ole Miss team that was in the top 15. They lost to Bama, who was a top 25 team. They lost to Notre Dame. Year before that, they lost to Bama. Year before that, they lost to nobody. Year before that, their only loss in 21 was to Bama. And then 2020, I believe they lost 2 games. One was to Bama, and the other was to Florida, who played in the SEC championship that year. So, yeah, you got to go back to 2019. Now, they got blown out by LSU in 2019, but that was an unbelievably good LSU team. So, they lost at home to a 4-8 South Carolina team that year. 2018, their only loss was to the top 10 LSU team, the top 10 Georgia team, and then the top 10 Texas team. 2017, their only losses were to a top 10 Auburn team who they rebeat in a rematch for the SEC title. Then they lost to Bama. So outside of 2016, when they had some bad losses in his first year, They've had one what I would consider bad loss to an unranked team since then. One loss from 17 to now. I think they've only had one loss to anyone not ranked in the top 25 when they played. So they're still going to be a 9-3 team, and that probably gets them in the playoffs, in my opinion. Will I be shocked if they don't make the playoffs? No, I won't. But I just need to see an LSU prove that they're better than Georgia. I need to see an Ole Miss or an A&M prove that they're better than Georgia before I can kind of completely go there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, as of today, I can't name 11 other teams that should be in the playoff above Georgia, like that are set up for that way right now. But I'm still in the same boat as Brian. Their roster doesn't really impress me like it has in years past. But as much as I disagree with some things that happen off the field, Kirby Smart's still one of the best coaches in college football.
On the field, yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, as much as people wanted to write off Clemson last year, I mean, they still even made the playoffs and won the ACC.
Right.
So you just never know. Buy-sell hold, Notre Dame's defense has 22 sacks and 10 interceptions.
I mean, they had 40 sacks last year, and they had 19 interceptions last year. So they'll be way over both of those. If they're not way over both of those numbers, Trev, then something went dramatically wrong. And I'm talking regular season, not even for a full year, but for the regular season.
Yeah.
They'll be way past that. So I'll buy that one.
Buy, sell, hold from Joey Sal 01. The Irish beat Ohio State in the national championship this past year if Riley Leonard was healthy in the spring and Riley Mills was healthy for the national championship game. Jagasaw was healthy all season and playing left tackle, and Batella was healthy all season. Benjamin Morrison and Boubacar Traore are healthy all season.
Are we then going to say that Josh Simmons is still hurt for them? Seth McLaughlin is still hurt for them? Do they still have the injuries they had? Denzel Burke doesn't get banged up and he's at 100%. I mean, you could do this for both teams. I think Notre Dame was more hindered by the injuries, certainly. But by the time you get to game 16, Riley Leonard missing the spring is not something that I'm concerned about. By the time you get to game 16, Jagasaw was playing left tackle. And honestly, I don't know that he could have played a whole lot better than he did in that game at left tackle. You know, Benjamin Morrison and Boubacar is maybe the ones that could have the impact on top of Riley Mills. But look, Ohio State was winning 31-7 at one point in time. So like a lot would have had to go different. Could Riley Mills and Boubacar and Benjamin been enough for that? I think so. So I'll buy it as possible, but I think to a degree, we got to be willing to give Ohio State some credit also. I mean, yes, Notre Dame was missing Riley Mills and Boubacar, but they were also missing their left tackle, who was a first-round draft pick this year. They were also missing their starting center, who I think got injured against Michigan. Or was it the week before Michigan?
I think it was the week leading.
It was late in the season, very late in the season, that McLaughlin got hurt. So, you know, Ohio State went out and did what they did with two starting offensive linemen down. And then that affected a third position because their answer for Simmons being down was kicking their left tackle, Donovan Jackson, out, or kicking their left guard, Donovan Jackson, out to tackle. They had to reshift their whole line. So I don't think we're giving Ohio State enough credit for that. Could those guys have been healthy been enough for them? Maybe. I would have loved to have seen that game. Both teams healthy. I think it's maybe it's a more competitive game early, but I'll buy that it's possible. I just feel it's important for us to say, like, let's also not act like Ohio State was 1,000% healthy and everybody was in their peak form in game 16 and Notre Dame was just this, walking mash unit that was barely limping by. I don't think that's fair either. Because the same D-line that you had against Ohio State was the same D-line you had against Georgia and Penn State. You beat them. Mm-hmm. So Riley Leonard was the same guy, against Ohio State that he was against Indiana and Georgia and Penn State. So, yeah.
Yeah. I see that the same. Notre Dame lost to a team that was the hottest team in the playoffs. There's just no doubt about that. I think the injured players could have helped. But, again, it's just such a big what if. I mean, is it a possibility? Sure. But the game was what it was, unfortunately. Buy, sell, hold from Lucky Duck 512. Christian Gray is the most underrated defensive player by fans.
I'll buy that and say that's a prequel to what we're going to discuss tomorrow. That'll be on our topic of conversation for tomorrow. So I'll buy that.
I am going to sell it because I don't think he's the most, but I think he's up there.
On defense? Oh, interesting. Who do you think is the most underrated on defense?
Junior Josh Burnham.
Oh, interesting. We'll also talk about those two guys tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Buy, sell, hold. Armel Mukum will have more than 10 pressures and sacks combined this season.
Well, sacks are part of pressures, so yes, I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
Yep, absolutely. Buy, sell, hold. Christian Gray will have more interceptions and pass breakups this season than Leonard Moore.
I'm going to sell. I think he's going to have more interceptions. I don't think he's going to have more breakups. Just the nature of the boundary position gives you more chances for breakups than the field, where the field position allows you're going to catch a lot more stuff kind of being caught in front of you. So I'll buy interceptions. I'll sell breakups.
We see that the same?
Great minds think alike.
Buy, sell, hold. If Mukum makes a jump this season, starts in 26 and becomes a star in 27, he will be a first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, if he does all those things, sure. Yeah. He's very talented. If all those things are true, he'll have a shot to be that. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, for sure. Buy, sell, hold. Outside of quarterback, one of the defensive tackles, Onye Rubio Mukum, taking a massive jump this season would have the biggest impact on the team.
It's a very good question. I buy that as I would still kind of say a wide receiver taking a massive jump would have a bigger impact, just because of the reason that your post you put Onye, Rubio, Mukum. You didn't even talk about Donovan Heinisch or Jared Dawson or Elijah Hughes or Sean Sevillano. There's a lot of D tackles, and you can get by with a good rotation that doesn't have anyone great. If this offense, with what they have, like Malachi Fields in the boundary and an Eli Raritan, the tight end, and the running back room they have, if Jaden Greathouse becomes just a stud, and I mean stud, Trev, also from a production standpoint, he's a 70+ catch, 1,000-yard guy. I think that would have an even bigger impact on this football team than one defensive tackle stepping up and having that kind of year. I think you can make a case for D tackle. I just would, yeah.
Yeah, I'm selling that as well. I'd put wide receiver in there. I'd even go as far to say I think a defensive end breakout would be more impactful.
Like Boubacar or Bryce Young. That's a fair point.
Yeah. You go back through and you look at all the playoff teams and the premier edge rushers they had. Tennessee had their guy. Ohio State had two of them. Penn State had Abdul Carter. IU had Mikhail Kamara. And all of those teams had good interior defensive linemen, but having that elite pass rusher ability is something that Notre Dame hasn't had at the end position in a couple seasons. And so I think that would probably be the biggest impact. The defensive tackle is up there, but I'd go wide receiver, ends, and then probably D tackle.
Did we get that? Yeah, we got to his. Okay.
Buy, sell, hold from Mick. Bryce Young has the ability to become the next Justin Tuck at Notre Dame.
I think he has a chance to be even better than what Justin Tuck was at Notre Dame. Certainly, I hope he's a little bit more consistently productive than what Justin Tuck was at Notre Dame. But yes, he certainly has that. Similar tools, long, tall. He's taller than Justin. Explosive off the edge. So yeah, there's a lot. I can definitely see a lot of similarities between Bryce Young and what Justin Tuck was at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly see that. And then Justin Tuck eventually grew into a interior player. I think in the NFL, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Justin Tuck in the NFL kind of a little bit more of an inside guy?
I always thought he was an edge. I could be wrong because that was still pretty early into my football watching days.
Yeah,
but I always remember him being on the edge.
He filled out a lot, being on the edge. Okay, so 6'6", 265. That's going to be right in the wheelhouse of what Bryce Young or Justin Tuck was. So yeah, could see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Buy, sell, hold from Do It To It. If Riley Leonard was returning, your opinion on this team chances to win a national championship would be the same as they are now.
Buy, absolutely. Yeah. One thing you and I have talked about, Trev, is I can't remember when we said it. Was it right after the season? But let's just say Notre Dame didn't have C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchie waiting in the wings, and Riley was coming back. I'd be super excited about this season because I think we'd get a different looking Riley Leonard. We'd get a more comfortable throwing version of Riley Leonard. He'd be more comfortable in the system. He'd have a lot more experience with the room. He'd have a lot more time to work with Greathouse and the different guys that are coming back. So yeah, I'd be just as excited if Riley Leonard came back. I mean, look, one thing we've said, Trev, is we think this is going to be a more talented team than the one they had last year. So if you bring back the quarterback, that was a big reason why you went to the title game last year. I can't say my optimism would be diminished because he's coming back with a better supporting cast around him. You know, I don't think I could say that. But I would say this. I loved what Riley Leonard did last year. And if he had a fifth year and came back, I'd be excited about what he could bring to the table. But I'm also ready for that next in line quarterback because of how talented I think the two kids in this conversation are. And also, and you've touched on this several times, Trev, but also the need to kind of transition to a more balanced offense. Would Riley improve enough to really make you that balanced? The way that, maybe you can be with a guy like that. And then I also wonder, would the running back room have stayed intact the way that it did if Riley Leonard came back?
I would have had more questions about the pass game if Riley came back opposed to what I do now.
Sure, it's fair.
And I would have loved for that to happen just because I would just really like continuity at the quarterback position for Notre Dame. That'd be fantastic. They haven't had a back-to-back starter since COVID, so that'd be ideal. Mm-hmm. But, I would like to think that based on how Riley ended the season last year between his throwing performances in the second half, between the semifinals and the national championship, would then lead him to be more of a openly pass-friendly quarterback in the regular season.
Which I think we would see with a full off season because we saw it from him. He had multiple 300-yard games at Duke in 2022. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's we think. And then how much would they revert back to? But here's the thing: is Riley was never going to be I think Riley was a better deep ball thrower than he showed at times last year. He had some games where I really liked from him at Duke, but he never had like the big arm that there's just some throws that C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchie can make that Riley can't just physically. Yep. But I would have been just fine with Riley Leonard at quarterback because he's really good. But I'm ready for that next era to begin. And now that you're most likely going to have the same quarterback in 26 than you did in 25, and that's a team that a lot of people are pointing to saying that could be the year for Notre Dame. I say hold on, let's not look too past 2025 because but they're going to have a second year starting quarterback. Yeah, so will Ohio State, so will Texas, so will Oregon, so will, you know what I mean? Like, so will everybody not named Penn State and Clemson. So will Bama, so will Georgia, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you've got a window now. Let's focus on this window now.
Mm-hmm. Buy, sell, hold. The defense will have a player in the top 5 at every level nationally.
So secondary, that's an easy one. Look, it's possible. I'll buy that it's possible, but you and I had a conversation yesterday, Trev, about how Drake Bowen is a breakout star. We're predicting he's going to be a breakout star. So it's possible that Drake could end up being a top 5 linebacker this season. Could be one of the best 5 in college football. It's possible. It's possible that one of the defensive linemen is a top 5 player. That's the position, however, where I think it's least likely right now. 2026, different story. When Boubacar gets a year of good health under his belt, and hopefully Bryce Young's coming back, maybe then. But it's hard for me to – because if you're a top 5 defensive lineman, you're a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Who's that guy for Notre Dame this year? Well, okay, Boubacar's got the potential to be that, but he's going to go from having basically played 3 meaningful games his entire career to an All-American in one offseason after coming off of an ACL, that's asking a lot. Is Bryce Young ready to go from raw freshman to top 5 national player? It's possible, but I'm pumping the brakes a little bit on that. I think he's going to be a good player for them this year, but I think his All-American breakout right now, I'm predicting, comes more in 2026 than it does in 2025. That's just kind of where I'm at. If I'm wrong, then, this team's going to be really crazy good, but I buy that as a possibility. But if you were to say, okay, you can't buy it as a possibility, Brian, you got to predict right now that it's going to happen. You can only buy if you're predicting it's going to happen, then I'd sell it. And I'd say, I feel good about linebacker. I feel good about the secondary. I don't feel great about the defensive line having a top 5 player. Because again, that's a top, you can even argue that's a top 20 draft pick. If you look at a lot of past defensive lines, that's a tough sell for me.
Yeah, as of right now, I got to sell this as much as I don't want to. There's outside of the secondary, there are some ifs in the defense, but the ifs on the D-line are real steep right now. That could change through fall camp after the first couple weeks of the season, but as of right now, it's a lot. So I'd have to sell it today, but I could be wrong.
Somebody in the chat, Isaac Sally said, I'm all in on Bryce Young being a stud, all that he has to be, or if he isn't, I'm worried. I just have a feeling he's going to be a monster. I push back on that notion. My whole point is I think some of you are putting too much on him as his sophomore. And just if he doesn't become a stud in 2025, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be worried. That's part of the evolution of growing. As long as he's a good football player and he's better than he was a year ago, then you shouldn't be worried. This is a kid that came to Notre Dame very raw. Mm-hmm. And I'm just concerned that because of the name and the freaky tools that we're expecting him to maybe arrive a little bit earlier than we should. Is it possible that breakout comes this year? Of course it is. I mean, there's a couple games in the playoffs where there's a couple snaps in the playoffs you're like, holy moly, if we get that on a more consistent basis, this is going to be fun. I just think it's a little bit unfair to assume it's going to happen this year, or to say I'm going to be worried if it doesn't. That I just think is a bridge too far for me. If it doesn't happen in 2026, then I'll get a feeling. And I get that you have a feeling, Isaac, and my pushback is not against you having a feeling that he can become a stud. I agree it could happen this year, but to say if he doesn't, you're going to be worried. Because you said, or if he isn't, I'm worried. I think that's really unfair to if he doesn't get it by his sophomore year, you're worried about it. Like that's my pushback. That's my pushback.
Buy, sell, hold again from Do It To It. Notre Dame has less interceptions this season, but more sacks with a mix of man and zone coverage, contributing to opposing quarterbacks holding on to the ball longer.
That's possible. I would argue that increased sacks don't mean increased. Don't mean decreased interceptions. I could argue that if they're a better pass rushing team this year, because of the things that you're talking about, mix of man and zone, I think the things that you're saying in the second part will actually lead to more interceptions if they are mixing up coverages more. If they are better at getting after the quarterback, I actually think that leads to them being even better at forcing turnovers.
I think it'll be a cause for more linebacker interceptions. Last year, Notre Dame only had one linebacker with an interception. It was on a tip ball. It was Kingston in the Purdue game. I think it was like late in the third or fourth quarter. So I think, to Brian's point, I think there's an argument to be made that you'll have more interceptions. So I guess as a premise, I sell this because I don't think they'll have less, but I get where you're coming from. Buy, sell, hold from P. Hamilton 16. If Tyler Buckner never transferred, he could have led Notre Dame to a national championship in 2024.
No, I'll sell that. I think he could have done what Riley Leonard did. I don't know that Tyler would have been better than Riley in 2024. If he never transferred and stays healthy, it's a big if. Could he have been a quarterback that led Notre Dame to a 14-2 record and a berth to the playoffs? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But would he have been better than Riley Leonard? No. Just real quick, I think Tyler Buckner made a huge mistake leaving. And I understand he was upset he wasn't going to start. I get that. But he could have used a year to just improve his game and get healthy. He needed that. And I believe by the end of the year he would have started. Once it was obvious they were not going to compete for a championship, I think they would have made a move. And I think the way Sam Hartman played against Clemson would have been, that's the game that you would have seen Tyler Buckner take over. Because I think we would have seen Tyler do in 2023 what he did in 2021. There'd have been some moments he's coming in and, running and things like that. But when Sam was struggling to move the offense, I mean, it might have happened against Louisville. To be honest with you, Trev, the way that the offense had been playing for 3 straight weeks, they struggled against Ohio State, they struggled against Duke, and they were struggling against Louisville. It might have been that moment that they made that move.
Yeah.
But at some point in time that season, I think they would have made the move to Tyler. And if Tyler could have been the guy that he was against South Carolina, except just protect the ball a little bit better, that's a dynamic football player. And, I mean, until the semifinals, did Riley Leonard ever have a game where he made the kind of big-time throws that Tyler Buckner made against a pretty good South Carolina defense in 2022? I don't think that he did. The problem is I knew I could trust Riley every week to answer the bell. And that's the biggest – that was always going to be the big concern with Tyler. But would he have been better than Riley? No, I don't know.
Biso Hold, Chase Claypool could have been a Pro Bowl NFL player if he was focused on football.
He's very talented. But,
Yeah. Yeah, him being paired up with Juju Smith-Schuster also did not help matters at all.
No, it did not.
Unfortunately.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
Biso Hold, Brian Kelly is at LSU for at least 4 more years.
I'm going to sell that. I think Brian Kelly retires within that period of time. I don't know that Brian Kelly's going to, if there aren't changes, like Brian Kelly, I believe, and this is not at all an anti-Brian Kelly comment, so just stick with me here. Brian Kelly's an older coach. He's a guy that's been a control freak his whole life, like most great coaches are or good coaches are. You're in an era now where it's just, I don't know that Brian Kelly loves the way the game is going. I think there's some things he likes because he can just go buy players and doesn't have to recruit as hard. But I don't think Brian Kelly loves what's kind of happening to the game enough to stick around for 7-8 years at his age. I think if LSU has a really good season this year or next, I could see Brian Kelly stepping away, working out some kind of deal. This year would be tough because he'd be leaving a lot of money on the table. So in the next 2 to 3 years, I could see Brian Kelly retiring if he's leaving LSU in a good place. And not because he cares about LSU, but he just wants to go out with a bang, so to speak. And he'll make a ton of money in that period of time also, and be able to step into, I think he's going to see what Nick Saban's doing and think he can kind of do that, because Brian Kelly thinks he's like a wordsmith and this really sharp, charismatic guy, get into TV and all that. So I could see him saying, okay, I've proven my point. I can win it this way, but I don't want to keep doing this. And that's not a shot at Brian Kelly. That's just I think a lot of older coaches are going to go through that the next couple of years, unless something changes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the only way that he leaves is if he retires.
And that's what I'm predicting will happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm with
you.
Like that's the only way I see him leaving.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold from.
I think that was supposed to be Carson, but it was spelled incorrectly.
Well, we'll go with Carson. From Carson Jackson, the 2024 Notre Dame team was defined by how far Riley Leonard would take them. The 2025 Notre Dame team will be defined by how far Joe Rudolph and the offensive line will take them, especially in pass pro. due to a non-like Riley Leonard quarterback and a buff at skill, talent, experiences, expecting the defense holds steady.
I buy that. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that it was. It's due to a non-like Riley Leonard quarterback. But look, I just have a hard time believing that Notre Dame can win a title if they don't have a typical Notre Dame offensive line. I have a hard time with that. So no, I think if this team wins a title this year, Joe Rudolph will have a significant impact on that, positive impact on that, because he'll hey, look, whatever you think about who should play here, who should play there, forget all that for a second. If Joe Rudolph goes with Carson, with Anthony Knapp at left tackle, Billy Schrout at center at left guard, Ashton Craig at center, Charles Jagasaw at right guard, Emil Wagner at right tackle, we can have some quarrels about who should or shouldn't be playing instead of Anthony Knapp, or Anthony Knapp should be playing here or there, whatever the case may be. Take all those debates aside and just look at that 5-man unit. That's still a pretty talented 5-man unit. If Joe Rudolph gets the most out of that 5, however you feel about who should be playing where, whatever, if he gets the most out of that 5, that is an offensive line capable of leading this team to a championship. Flat out is. So if they're going to be at that type of team, his unit will have to play to that level of football, in my opinion. Because you don't have, and I guess this is where, no, I think he's right. This is because you don't have a Riley Leonard type of quarterback to bail them out. So I actually, now I've talked it, I'm there.
Yeah, offensive line is in that conversation for me. I think quarterback is still in that conversation for me, but just in a different light. Like Riley Leonard had to do it in a different way, and there were games where he just kind of had to be the offense. I don't think the quarterback will be in that scenario. But Notre Dame will have to find some way to consistently push the ball down the field. I'm very confident that either CJ or Kenny can do that, but they have to be able to do it in a game in those big moments. And that is still something that I have yet to see on a consistent level. And so I think quarterback is still in that conversation. But yeah, huge argument for it to be the offensive line. So I'm with you there, Carson. Buy, sell, hold from Jake8589. The most used personnel on offense this year will be 11 personnel. I'll buy that. With the questions right now, the depth of tight end, there's a lot of different receiver talent in this room, especially now that it's starting to come together. I would buy that. I don't really know what it's going to look like. I mean, there's an argument to be made that you could see more like 21 personnel this year than you will 12 personnel because of how deep the running back room is too. And there's a lot of questions around the depth at tight end. So yeah, I would buy the first one. What say you, Brian?
Definitely. I mean, it was their most used formation last year. Still, not by a ton, but yes, it's not just the tight end questions. I also think the depth at receiver is such that they're going to do more of that than they did last year as well.
And the next one, kind of a follow-up, buy, sell, hold. The least used personnel on offense this year will be 12.
I'm going to sell that. I mean, the two-back alignments are still going to be used less than 12. We're going to see more two-back than we saw last year. I'm confident of that, but it won't be more than they do 12 personnel. Just in short yards and goal line situations alone, we're going to get a decent amount of that type of stuff. So I'll sell that. I do think there'll be a greater disparity between 11 and 12 this year than there was last year, however.
Buy, sell, hold. We will see more of 20 personnel on offense this year than we have seen in recent years with Love and Price specifically in the backfield. It's hard for me to see a lot of scenarios in the year where Eli Raridan, assuming he's healthy, is not on the field most snaps. Now, I don't know what the numbers are as to what they've ran for 20 personnel in the past. I would have to go out on a limb and say those numbers are relatively low over the course of a season. So I'm going to sell it. The running back room is loaded, but I don't think Mike Denbrock is in a spot where it's like, okay, let's get both of them out there without a tight end. I think it's more likely that they will take off whoever the Z receiver is, whether it be Faison or Pauling or KK Smith or Cam Williams, and put in another tight end with 2 running backs than it is for them to completely remove tight ends off of the field. So I'm going to sell that. Buy, sell, hold from Andrew Gilmore. Notre Dame should consider offering a second quarterback in the 2026 class, someone who is better running quarterback than Noah Grubbs.
So, I mean, guys, Noah Grubbs committed to Notre Dame while Mike Denbrock was the OC. Why are we assuming still that Mike Denbrock wants to have a running quarterback? They're offering some guys that are good athletes in the 27 class, but even guys like Peyton Houston and Malachi Ziegler are still passing quarterbacks. They're just athletic passing quarterbacks. So, no, I totally fine with that. Why do you need a running quarterback when you're recruiting running back better than any team in the country?
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And some of the other recruits, like a Bubba Frazier, is all right. He's kind of like, I don't think they'll only use him as like a gadget.
He's a gadget guy, though, Trev.
But,
I mean, he's a guy that can absolutely get some interesting touches to. I mean, put him in the backfield and do a direct snap to him or something like that. Or yeah, absolutely. If you have that need, is more of where I'm going.
Yeah, for sure. Buy, sell, hold. There are at least 10 teams with a legitimate shot at winning the national championship.
10. Well, let's just kind of go conference by conference real quick, Trev. Obviously we have Notre Dame. In the ACC, I really think there's only one team capable of winning a championship. Do you disagree? Anybody besides Clemson in the ACC?
No.
I don't see anyone in the Big 12 having a shot to win the championship. In the Big 10, I think Oregon has a shot to win it all. Penn State has a shot to win it all. And Ohio State has a shot to win it all. Even if Michigan reaches its full potential this year, they're not a championship team. Same with Illinois. Same with Indiana. Same with Iowa. Those teams are all capable of, if they reach their peak, they can get to the playoffs and win a game, maybe 2 if they get the right draw. But I don't see any of those other teams being good enough to win 3 to 4 games and win a championship. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Agreed.
So then Mountain West, nobody. Conference USA, nobody. AAC, nobody. So then we're left in the SEC. I think Texas is capable of winning it all. I think Georgia's capable of winning it all. I think Bama's capable of winning it all with their roster. If LSU had a coach that I didn't think was going to choke a postseason game away, I think their roster, if everything goes according to plan, could be a team that could compete for a championship this year. After that, I don't think Ole Miss does. I don't think A&M does. I don't think South Carolina does. I don't think Missouri does. And I definitely don't think Tennessee does. So the most I can get to is 9. So we're not way off, Andrew. I'm going to sell. We're not super far off. I just can't get to 10 right now. I can't get to 10. Am I missing anybody, Trev? Anyone you disagree with in the SEC besides the teams I mentioned? I mean, obviously you think LSU does. You have them 8th in their preseason ranking. So obviously you see a team that has the potential to maybe make a deep run.
Yeah. Potentially. The SEC is such a weird conference, honestly, going into this year. I want to say that Bama has it, like, legitimate is kind of what's throwing me off. Like, I don't know if Alabama has a legitimate shot. They didn't even make the playoffs last year. LSU is kind of in the same boat. I like their roster. Now, I like Alabama's coach more than I like LSU's coach. But a legitimate shot, yeah, I'm probably at about 8 or 9 teams, I would say. So, yeah, that's probably – I'd have to sell it because I'm definitely not at 10.
And some of the teams that I have 9 are if everything goes perfect. And how often do things go perfect for 16, 17 games?
Yep. Buy, sell, hold again from Andrew Gilmore. If Jalen Milroe or Quinn Ewers had transferred to Notre Dame instead of going into the draft, Notre Dame would be the consensus #1 team in the country in the post-spring polls.
I'm going to sell that for Ewers. I'm going to buy that for Milroe. Now, I wouldn't agree with it, but I'd buy it for Milroe. I think Jalen Milroe being asked to run the offense that Riley Leonard ran would have people really fired up. understandably so. I think Riley Leonard was a better passer last year than Jalen Milroe was, but I think Mike Denbrock's offense would be better suited for Jalen Milroe. I think he'd look more like he did in 2023 with Tommy Reese than he did last year with Kalen DeBoer in that offense. So as you know, I'm not super high on Jalen Milroe, but I think he would execute the Notre Dame offense the way they ran it last year very well. You just have to get used to him missing some throws, but you kind of already had to get used to that. And I was actually talking with a buddy yesterday, and I was kind of joking with the idea that she was kind of what we talked about in the show, where I was debating with someone who was trying to tell me that Arch Manning is a better athlete than Riley Leonard. It's like, look, the only quarterback in the country that was definitively a better athlete from a running standpoint than Riley Leonard is Jalen Milroe. He was a better runner than Riley Leonard, a more dynamic runner than Riley Leonard, I should say. And he would have thrived in this offense also. But I don't think they'd have been a better team, because I think a quarterback like that's always limiting. I don't think he's as good of a decision maker as Riley was, and I think he's also inaccurate and would have some of those issues. And he turned the ball over more. He had some really bad interceptions last year. But perception-wise, would they be considered the number one team? It's possible. I still don't think they would. I still don't think most media outlets would be willing to make Notre Dame number one.
That is the exact point that I was going to bring up. I'm selling this, and it's not because of Milroe or Ewers, because those arguments are valid. But the second one of those kids commits to Notre Dame, that's when all their flaws come out. That's just what we've seen. I mean, we're talking about, for them to be the consensus number one team, we're talking about like major outlets like ESPN that forgot to put Leonard Moore in as one of the key returning players. We're talking about those outlets are going to put Notre Dame number one. I mean, nah, man. I'm selling it. I'm selling it. I don't have faith that they would make Notre Dame a consensus number one team.
They would then, you know what they'd probably do, Trev, when you say that? They'd start picking apart his game the way that we did
100%.
all year last year. And they'd say, well, he threw this many picks and he did that. And
that's absolutely what it would be. They would get Jalen Milroe and they'd be like, Notre Dame brings in another quarterback that's a dynamic runner but struggles in the pass game. Notre Dame needs somebody that can push the ball down the field vertically. And, it would be the same thing. They'd be like, I think they would be higher than what they are now, because there are some services that just go based off of like who you bring in, not who you lose. And but it's the same thing. I mean, Carson Beck goes to Miami. People are like, dude, can Miami win the ACC and make a run at the title? Carson Beck transfers to Notre Dame. They're like, yeah, Notre Dame just got a portal quarterback that was injured, and who knows how good he's going to be. And it's just, I'm fully bought into that being what it would be.
I love it, Trev. I love the fact that you've nailed that.
That's just what it would be.
You're so not wrong. They would pick apart his game so much. Ewers, I think they would crush.
Oh gosh,
and rightfully so. I would. Like it's incredible. Notre Dame could have brought in Jamar Chase after 2019. Like Notre Dame relying on a 6'1" boundary receiver to turn around their offense. Like it's just doesn't matter. Fully convinced it could be anybody, which is fine. It's awesome.
Buy, sell, hold. The Big 12 already regrets not inviting SMU to be a conference member.
I'm going to sell that because I think there's some long-term animosity towards SMU that factored into some of that they don't realize that it would have been good financially for them. Because I'm with Andrew on why he's saying this. They should regret that, because that's a good football team in a big market that has a lot of money that have been good for your league, but I don't think they see it that way. I still think they're back in their petty grievances from the 1980s and stuff like that. So I'm going to sell that, but I think he would be correct that they should feel that way.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
I just said Andrew Gilmore's correct. Did you hear that? Did you hear that, Trevor? I said
yeah, and you guys agreed a couple of other times the other day. You should take your temperature after the show, dog.
I know, right? I know what's going on.
You feeling all right? Buy, sell, hold from I Am Tenzin. Jim and Pam were actually the antagonists in the show as they constantly bullied their coworkers, especially Dwight. I mean,
I think Dwight was a bully that they pushed back on. So, no, I understand where it's coming from. One part of the beauty of The Office was that you can make a case that they all had a little bit of that in them. You know, there was positive and negative traits to all of them, which made it so funny. But no, there's some things Dwight did. Like, dude, I mean, what's it? The second episode or third episode where Dwight's like doing the whole healthcare thing, and he's just like screwing them all over, and like, dude, he was someone that deserved he deserved a lot of what he got. But what was so great about the early seasons, like, it was never the same when Michael Scott left. Like, when Steve Carell left the show, it just was like, I stopped watching it. And even the last couple seasons with him were just kind of like, okay, they've run out of stuff to talk about. But like, the first few seasons were brilliant, because when you can make a guy that sometimes I'm just like, dude, I would punch him in the face so hard if I knew a guy like that. And then there's other episodes where you really felt bad for him. Like you felt like, man, I just, like, guy just wants to be liked by Michael Scott, and you felt bad for him. That's talent right there. That's great writing right there. When you, in one episode, you can make us hate a guy, and the next episode we're feeling bad for him and liking him, and he's the hero. Remember when Roy tries to come at Jim and he pepper sprays him, and then they're interviewing him. He's like, he's trying to recover. It's so great. But yeah, the first several seasons of that were tremendous. Oh yeah, were really tremendous. But no, I mean, I sell that.
I do as well. Buy, sell, hold, and we'll go each one of these teams. Any of these teams being undefeated by the time they play Notre Dame. So buy, sell, hold, Navy.
Well, let's look at his Navy 2025 football schedule. So Navy will play VMI win, UAB win, Tulsa, Rice, Air Force at Temple, Florida Atlantic. Tell you what, the toughest game they might play might be the game right before Notre Dame. Where they play at North Texas. I'll buy that. That's a possibility. The fact that Air Force is at home also should help them. So I'll buy Navy.
Buy, sell, hold Arkansas.
Well, they don't play as many games, obviously, beforehand. They start the season off with Alabama and sell this. They play at Ole Miss and at Memphis before playing Notre Dame. So I'd be shocked if they win both of those. So
then Boise State.
Boise State, I buy that one. We've gone over their schedule before. They play USF on the road first game, then Eastern Washington at home, then at Air Force home against App State. Beating USF and Air Force on the road won't be easy for Boise, but I think they'll win both of those. So I'll buy that one.
And then to bring us all home, buy, sell, hold USC.
Sell. Definitely selling that one. I mean, you've got, before you play Notre Dame, you've got to play at Illinois and at Michigan. And you've also got a home game against what I think is going to be an improved Michigan State team. So I just have a hard time seeing USC win both of those games. I hope they do. I've always said this. I always hope that USC is good when they come to play Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
Undefeated or one loss. Because, A, it's good for Notre Dame, and B, I just enjoy the fact knowing that your rival is crushed. Like you got USC people bragging about how we were in the game with you last year. I think I was listening to somebody the other day. It's like, Notre Dame really struggled with USC last year. I'm like, they literally never trailed. Like, when you're saying a team gave them everything they could handle, and to a degree they did, but when that's somehow your shot at Notre Dame as a game they literally never trailed.
Yeah.
And you're using that as some sort of attempt to downplay their season. It's like, I think you're missing the point here. Mm-hmm. While you hype up a Penn State team that was trailing USC 20-3 at one point in time. That's giving Notre Dame all they can handle. So I just, it's that typical double standard that we get.
Well, believe me, I've been on the other side of the table as a fan where it's, we were in the game. It was competitive.
I hate it.
We only lost by 28, and this other team lost by 30, so we played you harder. Yeah, I've been there. It's not a valid argument.
No. It's a terrible one.
Buy, sell, hold from
good timing on this one.
I was about to say that's smooth. Buy, sell, hold from Domer since birth. At 3 p.m. today, if Walton commits, Notre Dame will have the two highest profile running backs in the same class. In the history of Notre Dame, Reggie and Jerome were a year apart. Evans and Ferguson were a year apart. Technically, Rice and Brooks came in together, but for two running backs, Long way from signing day. 2026 will be the best 2 running backs signed at once in history to join the current top running back room in the country, who is the best overall running back in the country.
I'm gonna sell that. It could be the. I mean, let's see them play their senior years. Let's see what they do their senior years. But I look at it, Trev, and it's like I still need to see that. But like in 1990, I think is not only did they sign Jerome Bettis in 1990, but they also signed Jeff Burris, who was considered a running back, who was a big time recruit. So I get real cautious saying something's the best ever, especially since we haven't seen them play their senior seasons, but it's still a very good room. It's probably the best we're going to see this season, but best ever. I mean, Lou Holtz had some years they signed 4 or 5 running backs. So I'm not ready to go there just yet. But it's not something I'm also dismissing as a come on guy. They're not that good. I'm not doing that either. I'm just like, hey, listen, let's just kind of pump the brakes a little bit on this one and see how it plays out. So not quite there yet.
Buy, sell, hold from Ballpeen Shillelagh. Jaden Greathouse has the potential to have a Michael Mayer-like impact at his position. For example, he has the chance to be just as dominant in contested catches, efficiency, the go-to guy, etc.
I buy that. I mean, did you see the numbers I put up in the show yesterday?
Sure did.
I mean, on the board yesterday, his numbers compared to the perceived other top slots and the first slots taken in the first 4 rounds were last year. His contested catch numbers were insane, and he caught 6 of 7 contested catches in the playoffs. So yeah, I buy that. I mean, similar numbers and all. Yes, I buy that. I mean, different style, but yes, I buy that.
Buy, sell, hold from Black Irish 864. The use of orbit motion is a big factor in Notre Dame's offense.
I'm going to sell that until I see it. I need to see it first. So, Trev, let's do we're getting close to that time. Let's do the last couple here real quick.
Cool. Buy, sell, hold from Domerdale 44. Teams like Tennessee and Texas A&M have hurt themselves more than they have helped themselves by the money they've spent on recruits. Now all highly rated players expects the highest possible dollar amount with their school commitment to those schools.
Oh, I don't know that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Trev? I don't know that I view it that way.
No, I don't either. Like, look, that's just kind of the landscape, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. That's just where college football is at as a whole. I don't think that that's specific to Tennessee or Texas A&M.
Right.
A&M a little bit more on that side, but yeah, it's not just those two.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold from Domerdale again. Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame have replaced Alabama as the top school players will play at on an NIL discount. Bama now has to spend top dollar due to Saban's retirement.
No, they're not there yet. I mean, Ohio State still has some of that. I mean, kids aren't just going to Ohio State because they paid them the most money. Like, no, I'm not there yet. Texas is still to a degree, so I'm going to sell that.
Agreed.
Take us out here, Trev.
All right, folks. That'll do it for today's session of Buy, Sell, Hold. But don't go anywhere because we got some news coming. But before we get there, please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.
So what we're going to do next, guys, is Jonas Walton is getting ready to make his announcement. He's going through his big thank yous here in a second. And so when he's done, we are going to we're going to discuss his decision here. Jonas is picking between Notre Dame, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, and Stanford. As recently as a couple days ago, I got sent a couple reports from people that Alabama still felt confident they were ultimately going to land him. We'll see if that's going to be true or not here coming up. But just a little bit about Jonas Walton. He's from Georgia. He's from Central High School in Carrollton, Georgia. 5'9", a little over 200 pounds. This is an incredibly productive player, Trevor. He has over 4,700 rushing yards in his career. He also has over 900 receiving yards in his career. has over 50 rushing touchdowns, also has 3 kick returns for scores. So talented player. I believe I saw he's a 4.0 student in the classroom also. So you can understand why Notre Dame and Stanford are both among his Final Five. You don't see very many kids who have a Final Five of Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, and then Notre Dame and Stanford. So I think that says a lot about Jonas Walton, but he's getting ready to commit to the University of Notre Dame. It's a done deal. Jonas Walton just committed to Notre Dame. Let's talk about it, Trev.
Yep. It's a big-time commitment. Absolutely a big-time commitment. Like you said, Jonas Walton, he hails from Carrollton, Georgia. He's a 5'9", 205-pound running back. He's a consensus 4-star recruit. He's ranked a 4-star recruit by all the major services. On3, 247, Rivals, ESPN. He has a very extensive offer list, which is really impressive. That's always something that I kind of take a look at when recruits get signed. And then, of course, we know the other teams that were in the hunt for him. Like you said, he was choosing between Tennessee, Florida, Bama. I mean, he's in Georgia's backyard. And so when Notre Dame is able to beat out those other teams for him, I mean, it's a really big win on the recruiting trail. So I know that he's taken a couple of visits at Notre Dame. He was at Junior Day for them back on January 25th.
He's been on campus 3 times.
Fantastic. Notre Dame offered him back in December of 2023, so they've been on him for quite some time. It's came to the fruition today where Jonas Walton ultimately elected to commit to the University of Notre Dame. So, Brian, why don't you walk us through a little bit of the backstory here and what went into this?
Well, I'm a really fast typer, Trevor, because I just published a commitment story and a class impact story all within 30 seconds of each other. So I'm a really, really fast typer. But no, look, this is a what's that?
I said you should run Irish Breakdown.
I should start my own website. This is a big pickup for Notre Dame, Trev. I mean, we'll get into the backstory in a second, but it's just impressive when you can go into Georgia and get a kid out of the South that has the kind of the offers that he wants. These schools he's looking at, Bama and Tennessee and Florida, are not just schools on a list. Like I saw a kid that's going to make an announcement this week who's from Indianapolis, who's got Notre Dame amongst his final schools. Notre Dame hasn't been recruiting that kid for months. Caden Harris committed to Vanderbilt recently, had Notre Dame's hat on the table. He wasn't a take at Notre Dame. That's just one, especially once Aiden Pouncey got committed to Notre Dame. But sometimes these big time schools get their hat on the table because they're big time schools and they got offered by them, but they weren't being recruited by them. That's not the case with Jonas Walton, because he is a kid that Bama wanted, Tennessee wanted, Florida wanted, and Notre Dame beat those schools for him, which says a lot about where Notre Dame is right now as a recruiting operation. They are absolutely on fire getting this young man. But it's an interesting recruitment, Trev, because you talked about sort of the backstory, and Notre Dame went through a very odd, not an odd change. I mean, coaching changes happen, but they went through a really tough change this offseason when they lost Dylan McCullough, who was doing a phenomenal job with recruiting, and then obviously with recruiting a young man like Jonas Walton, who's someone who Dylan McCullough liked a lot. You could make a case, I'm not saying this definitively, but you can make the case that Jonas Walton was Dylan McCullough's number 1 running back on the board. I mean, he was pushing hard for Jonas Walton. And then when Jaywan Sider came in, obviously he continued that process. And then you're like, okay, well, then they get Javian Osborne. What's going to happen? Well, Notre Dame had done a phenomenal job with Jonas and put themselves in a great position. The only question when the change was made was, would Jaywan Sider like Jonas Walton enough to push for him as a one of 2 backs in the class? And that, because he did offer him at Penn State, but obviously he had Messiah Mickens in the class so long, it's like, okay, where is he going to be? And Jonas Walton was just as important of a recruit for Jaywan Sider as he was for Dylan McCullough. So great job by Dylan McCullough, kind of getting Notre Dame in position where I think they were the team to beat when Coach McCullough left. But you've got to now come in and continue that. He had a great relationship with Coach McCullough. He actually called Coach McCullough when he committed to Notre Dame and let him know that he was committing to Notre Dame, which is pretty cool. Tells you a lot about that relationship. But you also look and say, but that's not why he committed to Notre Dame. it was a big part of the process. I think Coach McCullough helped Jonas fall in love with Notre Dame, but he wasn't going to pick Notre Dame because of Dylan McCullough, because Dylan McCullough is with the Raiders now. He had to have that connection with Jaywan Sider, and then they were able to come in and get that done and get this commitment. So when you look at how this whole thing went together, Trev, it really came down to, could Dylan McCullough got you to a certain point, but could Jaywan Sider get you over the finish line? And the answer was yes. Now, the timing of it, because Jonas has always said, hey, I'm going to take visits, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Once Javion Osborne committed, he knew, if I want to be at Notre Dame, I got to make a decision maybe sooner. What this tells me, because this is true, Notre Dame did not pressure him to make a decision soon. He decided to announce sooner. He committed to Notre Dame about a week ago. I got a call during the show. If you guys remember that one time I got a call, it was during the show. Actually, no, yeah, it was a call during the show. It was somebody telling me that he had committed to Notre Dame. So if you're on the board, this is what the dancing gift was all about. I have a rule that I don't create dancing gifts for guys who have commitment dates set. Jonas did not set his commitment until after we did that. I didn't know that he was definitely going to announce soon. I wasn't sure when he was going to announce. But it was really just a case of, hey, they're taking 2 backs. I've always wanted to go to Notre Dame. If I'm going to go, I need to go now. And I think Notre Dame played it pretty smart because they wanted Jonas Walton. But since he wasn't ready to commit just yet, they went out and saw different guys. They saw him, but then they went and saw DeZephan Walker, and they offered a running back from Texas. I'm like, hey, man, we'd love to have you, but we got to keep recruiting other guys. And I think Jonas said, hey, look, this is where I want to be. So let's get it done. Let's get it over with. And so that's what led to this decision, and why Notre Dame now has an outstanding 1-2 punch at running back in the 2026 class. But great job by Coach McCullough and Coach Sider on getting this one done, especially when you're able to convince him to come to Notre Dame, even though you've already got another top 100 back already in the class. I think it speaks volumes to the sales pitch, but also, Trev, it's a lot easier when you're looking at the program and you're like, dude, they've had so much success in recent years of 2 legit running backs. And if you think about 2 of the last 3 years, Notre Dame has had 2 running backs with over 700 yards rushing. Obviously, you had over 800 from Logan Diggs and then over 900 from Audric Estime back in 2022 with the running quarterback for at least a part of that season. Then in 2023, Audric goes for over 1,300 yards, but even that year, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price combined for over 600 yards, and Jadarian was a dynamic kick returner. So it's like, hey, we're going to find ways to get you the ball. And then obviously last year, Jeremiah goes for over 1,100 yards. Jadarian goes over for 700 yards. So Notre Dame has shown, hey, listen, we can have 2 dynamic running backs. And the coach they hired to replace Dylan McCullough is someone who just coached a backfield that had 2,000-yard rushers at Penn State. So being able to sell that vision of, hey, listen, we're going to play more than 2 backs every week. More than 2 guys are going to get touches, made it a lot easier for them to convince both Javion Osborne and Jonas Walton that you guys can not only you're going to compete against each other, but you're also going to be backfield mates. If you're both good enough, you're both going to play. And that was a big sales pitch. And now you've got these 2 kids that are going to come in and push each other, along with Nolan James a year in front of them. And so big time pickups for Notre Dame. Big time.
Definitely a big recruiting pickup for Notre Dame. Definitely safe to say that this Notre Dame recruiting machine is now very well oiled. They're humming right now, and they're absolutely cooking along the recruiting trail. Let's talk big picture for a second here, Brian, and let's dive into the class impact and what this means. So he is now the 2nd running back in the 2026 class that Notre Dame has picked up. He joins Javion Osborne as the 2nd running back in that class. I believe he's now the 8th offensive player in this class that's been taken. So he's the 10th?
Ninth.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 4 offensive linemen. So you're at 9 right now. And then 7 defensive players, 3 D linemen, 2 linebackers, 2 DBs.
Good deal. Good deal. So let's talk overall class impact, adding a running back like Jonas Walton.
Well, as you mentioned, 16th overall commit, 2nd running back in the class. You now have 2 top 100 running backs. So why are you taking 2 running backs? Like, other than just, hey, we're going to take as many good players as we can get. No, they're strategic. There's a strategic aspect to why they're taking 2 backs and why 2 backs were what Notre Dame was looking for the entire time. because you look at the current roster, loaded, deep at running back, 6 players on the current roster, and none of them are out of eligibility after this season. However, you also have to be smart and say, hey, listen, I know that there's 6 now and nobody's out of eligibility, but the reality is if the season goes according to plan, we're probably not going to have Jeremiah Love in 2026. If the season goes according to plan, there's also a good chance that they won't, looking at from Notre Dame standpoint, that this is what the coaches are thinking. We won't have Jadarian Price in 2026 either. Because if things go according to plan and Notre Dame plays 16 games again, they're probably both going to the NFL next year. The odds of them bringing back Jabron Payne or Jabron coming back for a 5th year aren't great. But even if Jabron wants to come back, you're now at 4 running backs. So you need 2 in this class to get you back to the 6, which is you want to be at 5 or 6. And the way that Notre Dame uses backs and has used backs, we'll see if Jaywan Sider can do the same. We don't know the answer to that. But the plan is that you'll be able to play 3 of them. Well, now if you're down to 5 scholarship guys and you start to get a little bit low. But also you have to consider that when this running back class shows up, Aeneas Williams and Kedron Young are going into a draft-eligible season. And so there's a chance that if you don't get 2 this year, let's say Kedron Young has a monster breakout year. Let's say he's a good backup, rushes for 300-400 yards this year, goes out in 2026, takes over as a lead back, and has an Audric Estime type junior season. Is he coming back? I mean, after look, let's not forget that Kedron Young rushed for more yards as a true freshman than what Audric Estime rushed for as a true freshman. And then Audric comes out in year 2 and has a breakout. Well, I don't expect that type of breakout from Kedron, but could I see, because of the presence of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, but could I see Kedron Young go out in 2026, rush for 1,300 yards for a great Notre Dame team, and then bounce after his junior year? Could absolutely see that. And if you don't bring in 2 in this class, now all of a sudden you're going into 2027 and you are thin with experience. It's basically maybe Aeneas Williams is still there, Nolan James Jr., and then whoever you get in this class with a bunch of freshmen. So any way you spin it, if things go according to plan, you're going to need 2 running backs in this class. And if things don't go according to plan, there's probably some guys that are going to get kind of processed out of the program because they're just getting passed up and they're not performing at the level that you'd like. So you come into the class, Trev, and you talk about the class impact. You needed 2 backs, got 2 backs. The way that Notre Dame is recruiting the position, you're no longer just recruiting depth guys. You're recruiting impact guys, and you desire impact guys. There's a time and a place for depth players. This wasn't it. Depth guys are when you've had 2-3 years in a row of great numbers and you project to have a bunch of guys coming back. So, hey, it's good to have that year where you have a depth guy. I never liked the idea of 2 depth guys, which is what they got last year before they shifted gears and then brought in Nolan James, who's, I guess a depth guy early in his career, but could be a starter and an impact player at Notre Dame. Love Nolan James Jr. But you're at the point now where it's like, dude, we're bringing in dudes at running back. And if you're going to go out and get a running back and get 2 running backs, you'd like to get 2 dudes. But you needed at least 1 dude. If you got 1 dude and a depth player, you're going to be okay. But with Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton, you got 2 dudes. You got 2 impact, top 100, 5-star upside running backs who have combined in their careers for almost 9,000 rushing yards, and they haven't played their senior seasons yet. Think about that. And Javian Osborne does not have the best track times of the 2. Think about that also. So this is a young man that has a ton of talent. You've now landed 2 running backs, so you met your numbers needs, but you also met your impact talent needs. And then the other thing too, Trev, is part of being a class impact is, do you fit the system? And when you look at Jonas Walton, you see a running back that should thrive in the things that Notre Dame wants to do well. He is a downhill runner that has really good athleticism and really good feet and good vision. So he can look, if you give him a vertical hole, he's going to hit it like he's Josh Adams. I mean, that's just kind of how he is. But he's got really nice feet, very underrated agility and cutting ability and bouncing ability, good patience and all the traits you want to be a guy that can thrive in running an inside zone duo counter offense. And the other thing is Jonas Walton also has almost 1,000 career receiving yards. He had over 600 receiving yards as a junior, including over 130 in their last game of the year. in a playoff game and had over 300 kickoff return yards last year on 9 returns. In the last 2 years, according to Max Preps, he's had 11 kick returns. He's taken 3 of them back to the house. And he's not playing like little boy football in Georgia. He's not playing like at the level Sebo Flemister played. And I like Sebo. I'm just saying, like, Sebo played it like he was out in the country. He wasn't playing anybody. So this is a big-time productive player that also fits what Notre Dame does schematically. That's an important piece, Trev. And the same thing with Javian Osborne. It's like, if you can't somewhat see a current back in that player, you got to ask yourself, does this guy fit what you're trying to do? And when I look at Jonas Walton, could Jonas Walton basically execute the same run game that Audric Estime did? Yes. Could he execute the same run game that Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price did? Yes. Okay, there you go. I'm not saying he's like them as players, but it's like, that's the run game. Is he good at those things? And he is. And that's why you're getting him. But he's also a guy that brings balance. He's a guy that can make some plays in the pass game. So that's also something that I like about Jonas Walton. It's a really talented player. And you guys are going to see that firsthand here in a second.
I was just about to say, we've been talking a lot about play style and how he is on the field. I'm ready to dive into some film, man.
Yes. Let's do it.
Take a look at
Let's take a peek at Jonas Walton's film, and you guys are going to see what I'm talking about. The one thing that's interesting, Trev, is the 10.6 speed. I didn't see it at first because you see him, he's not your typical speedy back. He's short, he's really thick, and he's like a short, squatty like legs, so he doesn't have like the long strider type of speed. So he's one of those kids that honestly had to grow on me a little bit as a runner. Where when I first saw Javian Osborne, it's like first 5 clips, you're like, yep, that's a dude. Jonas kind of took me a little bit. You had to go through it a couple times, but the more you study, you're like, dude, he's pulling away from guys.
Yep.
Like, this guy has speed. This guy has playmaking ability. This guy has that type of skill. And, you've already seen 2 of his first 3 plays are catching the football in the screen game. And you see his ability. You see the strength. You see the balance. He's a horse to bring down. I love that low cut frame, thick lower body. Brian Smith was down to see him at practice the other day, and he said Jonas told him he's well over 200 pounds. And he's got that. He said he's got like tree trunks for thighs. You can see that on the film. He's a very thick upper bodied kid. And then this is where you start to see this is what makes him. So those are all great things, Trev, but none of those necessarily make him a great back. It's this kind of stuff that you start to really see. Like, look at this jump cut. Look at that.
Yep.
Like that kind of ability for a 5'9", 200+ pound back to be able to hit that jump cut like that and then accelerate. That's what you're looking for right there. Boom, hit that and then go. That's balance, that's agility, and that's really impressive acceleration skills right there. Nobody's catching him.
Yeah, when I watched his film at first, one of the first notes that I put in there was like deceivingly fast, because he isn't built like somebody that you would think has that type of speed. But his acceleration out of that jump cut from that first clip that you played was
showed again. Yeah.
I mean, and then go. I mean,
I think this is the first carry we've seen on film too, by the way. Like everything we've seen so far is catching the ball, kick returns. Is this one carry, and this next play is a great blitz pickup. But think about that, Trev. Kids has 4,700 rushing yards. We're 5 plays into his highlights, and we've only seen him carry the ball once.
He has that almost kind of Ashton Genty, Jahmyr Gibbs, like stand-up stance in the backfield.
Trev, do you at times see a guy that sometimes that makes him a little bit of a slow starter? Like, I think it does. I think at times it makes him a little bit of a slow starter. But once he gets going, the acceleration is really impressive. Really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, when he gets further downfield, I mean, he's outrunning angles, and that is what shocked me. Like this was the play when I watched it where I was like, okay, like he does have track level speed.
Yeah. 2 of those guys thought they had angles on him.
Yep.
And
like right here, I thought he was tackled
twice. And then this guy thought he had him too, and he just couldn't quite get there. Yep. Yeah. The speed is nice, Trev, but Audric Estime could hit a home run if you gave him a crease, and he was a 4.7.
Yeah.
It's the vision that you see from this kid, like the bounce. Like he hurdles 2 guys, folks. Like watch. I wish he wouldn't have slowed it down, but look, he hurdles 2 guys on that play. And what they say, it's a 4th and 10. And his coaches are like, what are we going to do on 4th and 10? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw a screen pass to Jonas, and he's going to convert it. Think about that. 4th and 10, he catches the ball a yard or two behind the line of scrimmage, and he gets it by doing what? Hurling 2 guys. But here's the impressive part. He doesn't fall down. He hits the ground, runs in his own guy, and he doesn't lose balance at all, and he just keeps running. You guys want to talk about, when you talk about great balance, great agility, that's it right there. The leaping part, it's like there's a lot of backs that leap people nowadays. It's this part that's impressive, but he hits the ground like it's nothing, like he's a hurdler. That's having great agility and having that really impressive contact balance. No, by the way, he just ran a seam route and tracked the ball like he's a slot receiver. We've seen him carry the ball. He's carried the ball once so far in these highlights, Trev. He's got 4,700 rushing yards, and we've seen him so far in his highlights carry the ball once. It says a lot about him as an all-around player. And this kind of came out of nowhere. He only had like 200 receiving yards as a sophomore. Last year he had over 600. He'll do this to you as well. I actually think this is a part of his game from highlights that I want to see a little bit more. But when you watch game film, you see a lot more of that.
Yeah.
That physicality. You don't see it as much in his highlight clip, but he's got it. When you watch game film, if it's 3rd and 1, he's going to hammer you. You see the blitz pickup that I was talking about, the pass game impact, I should say, that I was talking about, that you're seeing him bring to the table. It's a 5'9", 200-plus pound running back who's shown so far, we're a couple minutes in his highlight, and he's only shown 2 carries. We're going to watch a little bit of sophomore film too, but think about that. One play he's running inside zone, the next he's running backside seam out of trips. It's impactful player.
It's a good block.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But I want to see him carry the ball more. Here we go. Look at that vision.
Yep.
Patience, letting the block set up. Good read. He sees, it looks like there's going to be this big hole opening up right there, but he sees that leverage that back has on him and knows, I got to take this out the back door. A lot of backs would have been like, oh, I'm going in that hole. He takes it out the back door, and he's on the sideline.
You talk about seeing former or current players and the recruits that you're bringing in. That play had Jadarian Price written all over it.
Look at those hammies. That's a thick lower body right there, Trev.
That is also, side note, this is not about Jonas Walton. That is a short quarterback if Jonas Walton is 5'9".
Jonas is not tall.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But no, the lateral cutting ability reminds me a lot of Jadarian.
Yeah.
Very low center of gravity, quick out of the cuts. I mean,
look at that balance. Has that ankle tackle attempt, and then he's just right back to running. Hard to bring down. Great leg drive too, Trev, going through the line, but also when you're trying to tackle him, really good leg drive. But there's a couple clips too, Trev, where the hole's just there and he just goes. He's not dancing to dance. This is the counter. Good vision, knows that there's no hole there. He's got to bounce it up field, get what he gets. Just great leg drive, great agility, great motor, more blocking.
Keeps his shoulder square.
Yeah. Yep. Patience. Just look at that leg drive. Look at that balance. And this thing about both of the running backs in this class, Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton, have great cutting ability from the backfield. Both of them do. That's why you get the ball in your outside arm. His stiff arm is as good as you're going to see. Wait till you see a sophomore film. It's even more of it on there. But he's got some really impressive stiff arm strap. But his stiff arm's as good as you're going to see for a high school junior. It's really impressive. Really impressive.
It's another good block, man. Stayed engaged.
Yep. Look at that cut. Look at that read. Counter play that he hit. He creases in the A gap. Look at that. Boom. Gets vertical. Sees now he's got to get outside again. Really good vision. Good hands, too. Catches the ball with his hands. He's not a body catcher.
Yeah.
Look at that. That kid's like, I got to tackle this big horse. And he goes low and just boom right over him. Picks up an extra 4 or 5 yards. It's a really impressive athlete. This looks like a little scrimmage action here. It's like it's like with his senior high school or his junior high school film. It's like, look, I've ran for over 3,600 yards the last 2 years. I need to show people that I can do more than just run the football.
Yeah.
Because his sophomore film is just a bunch of him getting handoffs. But it's like his junior film, he's showing all these other things, jet sweeps and kick returns and all that kind of stuff. And, it's really impressive. Let's pull up his sophomore film because that's when you see him carry the ball a lot more, his sophomore film. So let's get that up there next and show that because I want to see him tote the rock a little bit more. And not from an evaluation standpoint, he totes the rock a lot. I'm talking about from what he's showing on the film. I want to see a little bit more of that. So let's get that. Here we go. Back-to-back years of over 2,000 all-purpose yards, by the way. Let's get to this. Here we go. Let's go back. Really impressive all-around player. But the sophomore film, there's a lot more of this. Hand him the ball off. Let him go be a dude. Look at that gear.
Good
and then
Lord.
You're not bringing him down. It's like you think you have the angle, and then you kind of catch up to him, and he just bullies you. And then outruns everybody else. Look at that. Look at that burst right there, Trev. Boom.
Yeah, once he makes a decision to go, he moves, man.
Yes. Look at that. Look at that lead drive. That poor little kid. Oh, he wanted no part of that action.
Poor kicker.
He wanted no part of that. No part of that action. But this is a soft. Look at that. Look at that stiff arm, Trev. I mean, here's what's impressive about the stiff arm. It's not just timing. But if you try to stiff arm a guy once he's into your body, that's not going to work. You got to have that timing and that pop to say, hey, when is he at my reach level? Right there, boom. Right there, boom. Like that poor kid. Like, his stiff arm is as good as you're going to see. I'm telling you, dude, it is an impressive attribute. Impressive attribute. Still showing blocking clips. I want to see you run the ball, man. No more of this blocking stuff. Look at that. If he's going to crease you vertical, he can do that. Patience, and then accelerate, get through the hole. And to see this backside cut once he gets through the hole. Like, okay, I'm taking it out the back door. That's really impressive vision for a running back.
Yeah, it is.
Really impressive vision. He's not
a lead blocker.
Just a dance. He runs with purpose. Look at that lead block. Look at the leg drive. You can just tell this is a kid that, look, I'll do whatever I got to do to win.
Mm-hmm.
And Javian Osborne's that way too. There's a lot of stuff in his clips where you're like, dude, why is this stud running back with 4,000 career yards showing me pass blocking clips? Because in his mind, that's an impressive play because I'm trying to help my team win.
There's that balance you were talking about.
With a stiff arm and that leaping ability. Like most guys should fall down from that type of leap, but he just gets up and then within 2 steps, he's back to full speed. With 3 steps, he's back to full speed. And scores.
Good Lord.
That's really impressive. Look at that vision. See that back cut. Sees the blitzer coming off the edge. I'm going to cut underneath it, get outside. And look what he does. Once he makes that cut, balls in 2 hands. Now I'm outside. Balls in the outside arm. Love it. Boom. Look at that stiff
Good
arm.
Lord,
I told
dude.
you, his arm's as good as you're going to see, dude. It is. His stiff arm is as good as you're going to see. This is such an impressive 1-2 punch of these 2 kids, of him. And look at that. Look at that vision. Patient. Boom. Get there. Look at that move. Do y'all see this move right here? He makes this kid think I'm cutting back and then just pops it back out. Like, do you see that right there? Watch. Right there. And then he bounces back outside.
That's so smooth.
Subtle. It's subtle. Like, you don't see it. And you're like, first time I saw it, it's like, what's that kid doing? And then you go back and look, and you're like, oh, he leans him back inside and then pops it back out. Because that kid's thinking, I don't want to get run over. And
No.
then he
Or
leans
get
him back
stiff arms.
inside. Oh, it's impressive. Yeah.
Or get
impressive.
hurdled. I like when running backs, like, pad level doesn't change whenever they make a bunch of cuts. You see that sometimes in, like, offensive play or young running backs, like little, like, scat wide receivers, like before they get ready to cut, they do one of these, like they get like really high and then get back low again. I mean, that was a very smooth cut.
Mm-hmm. I love the patience. Like, let it block, let it play out, and then when it's time to go, you can go. Very impressive running back. Patience, and then got nowhere to go, so I'll just run this guy over. I like this, though, because if he tries to bounce it, this guy's got the angle. This guy's tackling him from the side if he tries to outrun him. This guy's going to tackle him for a loss. Know when to cut your losses and just get what you can get. And then sometimes you're good enough with your power, and then watch him with his right hand right there. Keep that guy off of him. Next thing you know, they're thinking, hey, we got him in the backfield. Nope. 30-yard game. Yep.
Yeah, this
Really
kid's legit.
runner. Yeah, he is. But this is an example I'm talking about. There's look, the hole's right in front of me. So I don't need to do anything pretty. Just hit it. And then once I get to second level, then I can do something nice.
Switch his hands.
I don't love that, but he does it at the right time. Okay, he doesn't do it. He's in space, and then he does it. So I'm kind of like, hey, once it's there, it's there. But look at that. But why does he do it, though? He knows I got one guy to beat, and I need to get my inside arm free so I can do the stiff arm if I need to. But
good Lord.
Yeah. Yep.
Just strong kid.
He sees the end zone, and I'm hunting. That's what, him and Javian Osborne both, man. They hunt the end zone. It's like they have nothing on their minds except what do I got to do to get to the end zone? And I don't care where we are, -2 or +2, I'm getting to the end zone. Like they have a hunger for the end zone. Both of them. I love this 1-2 punch. And look, I could see with the way he blocks, you're telling me you can't go some 21 or 20 personnel where you've got Jonas and Javian Osborne on the field together, or one of them in with Nolan James Jr. Like
that last play
together, Trev.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That last play, they lined him up attached to the line of scrimmage.
let's go back.
Like, look at this.
Yeah, yeah.
The old 5'9" tight end.
I got to take. We did that once when we were at Muhlenberg. When I had Matt Bernardo at running back. He was an All-American running back for us, but we played. I think Ursinus. We lined him up at tight end, knowing they won't know what to do, and ran him on a seam route. And he had to score like a 70-yard touchdown. So it's like seeing that, like, okay, I like these coaches, man. I like these coaches.
And he looks a step faster in his junior film.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking that, Trev. Like, I wonder if, like, maybe he was – and his production wasn't as good. He was about 1.5 yards less per carry. I wonder if he was maybe battling, like a hammy or something where he wasn't quite as explosive. And you wonder, did he put on too much weight? Well, then you see him out there winning the state 100-meter championship this past weekend with a 10.6. Like, nope, speed's there. I do wonder if maybe he was battling something as a junior. Maybe that had him that. Look at that run. Look at that drive. Just running that poor linebacker over. You got no chance. You got no chance. You want none of this. He's a really impressive running back. You can see why he was – I think he was Dylan McCullough's top back on the board. And you can see why. He's a big-time back.
Yeah, he is.
Somebody asked me, even before he committed, somebody asked me, what's your ideal 1-2 punch at running back in this class? And I said, it's Osborne and Walton. I mean, that's my ideal 1-2 punch at running back in this class because they're both alphas, but they complement each other very well also.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both enough of a home run hitters that they don't neither like Jonas can be a 20 carry guy. Like he has the body to be a 20 carry guy, but he doesn't need 20 carries to be an impact player. Like he's built kind of like Audric, but he doesn't need to be Audric because he can hit more home runs than Audric could. Look at that. Look at that. Safety thinks he's got him. Like, oh, I got you. No, you don't.
Ooh.
Yeah, look at that spin move. It's an impressive athlete, dude. Yeah.
Very instinctive.
Yeah. Yep. As soon as he's got a shot to get vertical, he's looking to get vertical also.
Mm-hmm.
You have yet to see him go backwards when he gets hit. Like he is the one delivering the punishment. Look at that. Look at that cutting. Look at that bounce. That's what we talk about vision, Trev. But then it's one thing to have vision. I think I have good vision as someone who knows the game. But if you handed me the ball off, I'm not making cuts. I'm going like this until somebody trips me. You know what I'm saying? Like It's the cutting ability that's just really impressive. Really impressive. And he doesn't have to touch the ball to make an impact. That's something else I love too. Look at that. Look at that. Great balance. Keeps his eyes open. That poor kid's like, they really think they're going to okay. They're going low. Somebody said in the chat, this young man made a business decision. He's thinking, I'm not playing college football. I'd like to, I need this pretty face.
Yeah, he had an AP U.S. history exam on Monday.
Yes, he did. Yes,
that kid.
Look at that vertical cut. Watch this. Gets outside, patient. Watch this vertical acceleration right there, guys. That is really impressive. That explosiveness is really, really impressive.
Yeah.
This is a talented back. Really talented back. Yeah. And then he can like I said, outrun people. He's a big time back. I mean, I hate to do like the lazy comps, but I'm watching him play and I just keep thinking to myself, dude, this is Maurice Jones-Drew. Like if you're looking for a comp, short, squatty, but maybe with a little bit more juice, maybe, but than you'd expect from a guy of his size. But
I was thinking Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I think he's a lot better runner. Body type, yes. But like one thing about Maurice Jones-Drew that I always liked is he did not look. And the one thing I wrote about Jonas in my breakdown, my class impact breakdown was he doesn't look like a speedy back. Like when you see speedy backs, you think they're built a certain way. They either look like Jadarian Price or Jeremiah Love or like a smaller guy, an undersized guy. You don't think 5'9", 210 is a speedy back.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Maurice Jones-Drew was. He was 5'7", 210, but he ran a 4.4 at the combine. Like he didn't look explosive, but he was explosive. So that's what I say is like a little bit more juice than you'd expect a guy of his size to have. So it's hard for me not to look at this kid and think, and when I say Maurice Jones-Drew, I'm not saying he's going to be Maurice Jones-Drew. Just a reminder for people when I make comparisons, I'm talking about style of play, body type, skill set comparisons, that type of thing is what I'm referring to when I compare a guy to somebody else. But Maurice Jones-Drew was also a smaller back that can make an impact in the passing game as well. So that's a comparison as well. But no, this is a talented running back, Trev. Very talented.
Absolutely.
Very talented running back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, hey, let's tie a bow on this part of the segment. Let's talk about what's next for Notre Dame on the recruiting trail.
I mean, first of all, think about how much we've talked about how dynamic these two players are. And by the way, we could have gone back and watched his freshman film because he also rushed for 1,600 yards as a freshman. But we don't want to be here all day, as much as y'all would enjoy it. But I would encourage you, go back and watch his freshman film because it's also very impressive. But where you are now, Trev, is you have to understand something. They're committed, and I think they're both young men that have every intention of being committed, but you have to understand these are both big-time backs that schools are not going to give up on. And in this world of NIL, if a team misses out on a guy, they're going to come back later and try to offer big deals. So you've got to make sure that you maintain the strong relationship you have now with both of them through this entire process until they sign. You got to get down to see them as much as you can, love on them as much as you can, just keep building that relationship. And Jaywan Sider's no fool. He understands that. He knows that. But that's just what they have to do. But what this does, Trev, is you're now sitting here May 14th of the summer of 2025, and you're already moving on to your rising junior class recruiting. And there's already some impressive guys on the board. But what he's doing right now, on top of, hey, I've got to help out with this class, is what you're essentially saying, okay, now it's time to move on to the 2027 class. And there's already some really impressive players on the board. They've offered Amir Brown from North Carolina, who the staff likes a lot. He's been on campus. That's a kid to keep in mind. There's some very talented backs in that class that Notre Dame is after. I watched Amir Brown the other day, and he reminds me a lot of – he's a little bit of a combination of Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton. So there's some talented players on the board, but that's what you're doing now. And what's nice is because it's so early, you can have a bigger board and you can take more time to evaluate and get to know them, because most of those kids aren't in decision-making mode right now. They're going to be more in decision-making mode into the summer and into the fall. And then some of them are going to be where this group is making decisions next spring and summer. So You have time to really see who's the fit, who's the kid that's going to come in and be good enough to compete with these guys, but also not someone who's going to bounce after a year if he's not playing. You got to make sure you find that right type of player. And so this gives him some time to do that. So actually I'm sorry, Trev, we've got to do it. I just remember this one play that they just showed that I gotta show. So just show me one more play. This is from his freshman year. I just got to show this one. This just popped up on my screen, but just watch this. Just look how easy he is just pulling away from people. Like, yeah, that's just a freshman in high school, by the way. But it's really now about take your time to make sure you're getting the right player in next year's class.
Yeah.
Which is a combination of talent, right kind of personality, and right kind of does he fit what you're trying to do? And that's really where they're at. Now, here's the other part of this too, is by getting these two backs early, you are in a situation where you've got a guy in Jaywan Sider who has recently done regional recruiting. And he's a guy that played quarterback, has coached other things. I would not be hesitant to say, hey, can we use Jaywan Sider a little bit to help close out some of the kids that they're recruiting in Florida, where he's from? Are there things they can do with maybe, hey, let's have him help out Mike Brown, not in a way where I'm disrespecting Mike Brown, like saying Mike Brown can't recruit. He needs all the help he can get. But more so saying, dude's got some time. He doesn't have to get out there and, like the Zephan Walkers and guys like that, Brian Bonners, you don't have to worry about them anymore. I don't see Notre Dame taking a third running back in this class. I don't think there's any need for them to take a third running back in this class. I think they can just these two kids are in the class and you just kind of roll with it and just keep it going. So I would take advantage of the fact that Jaywan Sider has a history of not just recruiting the running back position. And I would take advantage of that and say, hey, let's utilize what he can do on the recruiting trail to go get some other positions and to recruit some other players. I'm just going to let his freshman film run for a little bit while we're finishing up this conversation, Trev, because every time I pop over, he's hitting a home run. I was like, let's just let the fans enjoy it. We won't break it down, but we'll have it on there. This is freshman film. But so that's where you're at. Is I would like to see them maybe utilize Jaywan Sider's recruiting skills by having Jonas Walton and Javian Osborne in the class this early. You have the option of doing that. But his number one priority will still be, hey, I've got to go out there and find the right running back in the 2027 class. And he can also start, Trev, he can start getting after the top 2028 guys now.
Yeah.
You're not recruiting just one class at a time. You're recruiting multiple classes at a time now. And that's going to allow him to really make a big splash in that regard. There's no doubt about it. But the interesting thing, Trev, that we should have mentioned earlier in this conversation, is you're talking about a player in Jonas Walton, or or a year where it's a loaded running back year nationally, and you had to take advantage of that, and you got two impact guys. I don't know if it's possible for any other team to have a two-man group like this group. I think these are both top 10 national running backs. In my grading system, they are. And you went out and got two of them. That's it's a good place to be. And it really sets you up for now building on the future.
Well, what this shows me even more so is it's adding to that little pool of, hey, and you just start to trust a little bit more of what Marcus Freeman does. One of my biggest question marks about Coach Sider was not his ability to coach good running backs. We've gotten to see that during his time at Penn State. We did get to see some of the recruiting at Penn, or what he did at Penn State, but recruiting at Penn State's a little bit different than what you have to recruit at Notre Dame. And what these two commitments have shown me is that it's okay. This isn't going to take a drop off with Dylan McCullough headed off to the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's a very comforting feeling, of knowing it's like, yes, we know that when he was at Penn State, Big Ten school, a little bit of different recruiting parameters at Penn State versus the ones that you have in South Bend. He can attract top-level talent, and he's getting guys like Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, Miles Sanders. So, all that's good. But what are you going to do in this light? And what these two pickups showed me is okay, the train just keeps rolling now. And that's a really, really good spot to be in, man.
Yeah. Well, it is. It absolutely is. So yeah, it's a great place. We did have a super chat from my guy Remington Jeans. I was actually going to text you this week because I hadn't seen you in the chat for a while. I was going to be like, hey man, you good? I haven't seen you in the show for a while. But Remington left a super chat. He says, late to the show, but does the 250-year anniversary of the USA have anything to do with the Navy night game? Is this the 250-year anniversary?
I'm not sure.
I thought that would be next year, 1776, or like, I'd just be curious, like, what would make this be 250? I've heard a couple other people say that again, but I'm curious about that. What makes it 250? But a couple people have said that it was something like that is why they're having this game at night. Somebody else said it's something like, I forget. Somebody said something about like something veterans related.
Maybe.
So,
I think this is the
Veterans Day is on that following Tuesday.
Maybe.
So there could be some reasons like that. But you're playing them. I don't know that the night game adds anything of significance unless you got a bunch of stuff scheduled for that day that you want to do some things to honor. Maybe I don't know.
With Navy specifically, I think it's like their 99th all-time meeting. Okay. I think because I know they met for the 80th time in 2006. I remember that from like this highlight video I watched like last week.
Yeah,
but maybe they just wanted to do the night game because this will be at home because next year it'll be on the road.
You know what? Archer just said this, and I just looked this up. But the Navy was established in 1775. It wasn't in November, but it was established in 1775.
Okay.
So Archer just brought that up, and I had just looked that up. So it could be that it's like I said, the Navy was created in 1775. I just looked it up. I said, when was the Navy created? It was October 13th of 1775. Is when the United States the Navy was created. It was called the Continental Navy. So it was a Continental Navy, and it's saying right here, it says it became the United States Navy. So yeah, interesting.
The more you know.
Yeah, and then when was the Naval Academy started? The Naval Academy was established in 1845, so it's not because of that. But yes, but the United States Navy was founded in 1775. So that would be 250 years. So then that would make sense. So, but yeah, great day, Trev. Obviously, big pickup. Enjoyed the BISO hold. Great stuff in the BISO hold today, guys. There was a couple BISO holds we didn't get to. We got to a bunch of them. But there was a couple that we did not get to that I'm actually going to there was a couple from Domer Dale. Had one left, or no, there was one BISO hold left that we didn't get to. One, that's it.
Hey,
so I would like to actually bring that up, and I thought there was a couple others that we didn't get to, Trev, but because we just didn't get to that last one, I would like to bring that last one up because it was actually a great question, and then we'll finish this up here and be done. But I was like, man, we got that close to getting all of them done. I want to finish what we started, baby. So we'll get this last one in, and then we'll be good to go.
Last buy-sell hold of the day. Buy-sell hold Faith Family, Notre Dame forever. By the end of the upcoming season, Notre Dame will have beaten 4 different SEC teams.
I'm going to buy this because I predict that I'll give you all a little sneak preview, but I'm going to have Notre Dame at least back to the semifinals in my prediction. Not going to tell you quite how far, but that's where I'm going. And they're going to have to beat 2 SEC teams in the regular season. Right? Am I counting that correctly? You got Texas A&M and Arkansas. That's the only 2. You don't play 3, right? There's only 2 regular season. So then you'd have to play 2 SEC teams in the playoffs. I actually think last year I felt the SEC was down. I said that before the season. This is going to be a down year in the SEC. I think the SEC is going to be much better this year. Do they have a dominant potential as good as Ohio State was last year when they finally got rolling, or as good as Georgia was in 2022? I don't think so. I don't think Texas is that, and they have to prove that to me. But Texas is really good. I think Alabama's going to be very good. I think Georgia's still a top 10 team. LSU could sneak up on some people. Ole Miss is going to be talented. Tennessee's still going to have some talent. A&M's going to be very talented this year. I think the path to the championship, if you're going to compete for a championship, could very well include you have to beat 2 SEC teams this year. Whereas last year's just 1. I do think there's a much better chance this year that a path for Notre Dame will include 2 SEC schools, whether that be you've got to host one, the 4th or 5th SEC team at home in the first round, and then you got to beat one later, or it could be like last year where you get to the quarters, and let's say this time Texas beats Ohio State, you beat Georgia or a Bama or a Texas in the quarters, and then you got to beat that other team in the championship game, something like that. I could certainly see that being a lot more likely this year than it was last year. So I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that because I also am going to predict that they're going to beat Arkansas and Texas A&M. So giving away some secrets, Trev, but that's just, it was a good buy sold submission. I was like, ooh, and that one came in like last minute. I had just finished the cards and I hit refresh and that one popped in. I was like, ooh, that's a good one. So I wanted to get that one in from Faith Family Indy Forever before we finish the show because I was like, we're not going to leave this hanging with just one or two cards left.
I'm gonna buy that too with the fleeting dream that LSU has to travel up to South Bend.
That would be the ideal. Make LSU come up for a December football game in South Bend, Indiana. That'd be a lot of fun. I'd dig that very much.
That'd be awesome.
Because I thought last year, Trev, I was like, look, if there's any team in the SEC that's going to be prepared for the cold, it's Tennessee.
Yeah,
and they weren't, and it wasn't even that cold. Now, I don't know if the cold is the only thing that was going on at Tennessee. I think we've learned that there's a lot of other things going on, but like you could tell they weren't really feeling the cold. And
no, they weren't.
Yeah.
Well, all right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. Awesome buy, sell, hold submissions. We covered the Jonas Walton commitment. Brian and I will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. to continue our offseason conversations about this Notre Dame football team as a whole. I believe the midweek mailbag is going on tonight for IB Nation Sports Talk, and that goes live at 5. But before you head out of here, folks, please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family. Whatever streaming platform you listen to this on, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. But as always, the best way to support what we do here, you see it scrolling down there at the bottom of the screen. Subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Till tomorrow at 1 p.m., that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.